We need fresh energy." Marcus delivered the 4 words with the calm confidence of a man announcing a new office policy rather than ending someone's career. His voice traveled effortlessly through CloudSync's main conference room, reaching all 200 employees seated beneath the white ceiling lights. No one moved. No one whispered. Even the soft hum of the ventilation system seemed unusually loud in the silence that followed. Vanessa Hayes sat in the 3rd row with her hands folded over the notebook on her lap, staring at the stage as if she had misunderstood what had just been said. For one suspended second, she expected Marcus to clarify that he was talking about a new campaign, a redesigned website, or an expansion of the marketing department. Perhaps he was introducing a consultant. Perhaps the young woman sitting beside him had been hired to manage social media under Vanessa's leadership. Then Marcus turned toward Isabella Rivers and smiled. "That is why we have asked Isabella to step into the role of brand director," he continued. "She represents the next generation of leadership CloudSync needs as we enter this new phase of growth." The room seemed to tilt beneath Vanessa. Isabella sat in the chair that had been placed beside Marcus, her legs crossed elegantly and her phone resting face up in her palm. She wore a cream-colored suit that looked expensive without appearing formal, her dark hair arranged in loose waves that fell perfectly over one shoulder. Her smile was bright, practiced, and almost innocent. It was the expression of someone receiving an award she believed she had earned. Vanessa could not breathe properly. Brand director. Her title. Her department. Her job. For 8 years, those words had appeared beneath her name in company presentations, press releases, conference programs, investor documents, and email signatures. She had not inherited the position from anyone. She had created it because CloudSync had not possessed a real marketing department when she joined. There had been no brand strategy, no media relationships, no customer narrative, and no clear explanation of why the product mattered. There had only been 10 exhausted employees, several folding tables, a half-finished software platform, and a founder who believed enthusiasm could replace communication. Vanessa had turned that confusion into a recognizable company. Now Marcus was handing everything she had built to a woman who had never led a marketing campaign in her life. "We are not abandoning what brought us here," Marcus said, although he still had not looked directly at Vanessa. "We are evolving. The market is changing. Audiences are changing. The way people connect with brands is changing." Isabella understands authentic engagement in a way that traditional marketing structures often fail to capture. Traditional marketing structures. The phrase landed with quiet cruelty. Vanessa looked around the room. Luke, the content strategist she had hired 3 years earlier, was staring at the table. Priscilla from communications kept adjusting the sleeve of her blouse without looking up. Hannah, Vanessa's assistant and closest colleague, had tears shining in her eyes. Several members of the marketing team sat rigidly in their chairs, their expressions caught somewhere between guilt and fear. They knew. The realization moved through Vanessa slowly, colder than the shock of Marcus's announcement. They had known before she did. Perhaps not everyone, but enough of them. Their strange silences during the previous weeks suddenly made sense. The meetings that had ended when she entered a room. The budget discussions that Marcus had repeatedly delayed. The way Luke had answered too quickly when she asked whether he knew the purpose of the company-wide meeting. Hannah's hesitation that morning when Vanessa had asked what was on the schedule. They had all been standing beside the trap while she walked directly into it. Marcus continued speaking about restructuring innovation and new perspectives, decorating the act of replacing her with language designed to make it sound visionary. He spoke of audience intimacy, cultural relevance, and digital native leadership. Each phrase seemed carefully selected to avoid mentioning the truth. Vanessa was being removed from the company she had helped build, and Isabella had been chosen to replace her despite having no qualifications for the role. Vanessa studied Isabella more closely. She knew the name, although they had never formally met. Isabella Rivers had built an Instagram following of more than 200,000 people by posting carefully arranged photographs of smoothie bowls, workout routines, luxury skincare products, sunsets, and inspirational quotations. Her captions were filled with phrases about abundance, positive energy, personal transformation, and trusting the universe. She had partnered with fitness brands, cosmetic companies, and boutique hotels. She knew how to position herself in good lighting and speak to a camera as though every follower were her closest friend. That was not meaningless. Vanessa understood the value of online communities better than most people in the room. Influencer marketing could produce results when used strategically. A strong personal brand required consistency instinct and an understanding of audience behavior. But maintaining an Instagram account was not the same as running the brand of a technology company preparing for a major investment round. Isabella had never managed a crisis involving customer data. She had never presented acquisition metrics to a board. She had never designed a campaign across multiple markets, negotiated with a hostile reporter, coordinated a product launch, defended a budget, or rebuilt public trust after a service failure. She had never managed 27 people whose salaries depended on her decisions. She had never been responsible for revenue projections, investor messaging, competitive positioning, or the reputation of a company serving thousands of clients. Vanessa had done all of those things. She had done them when CloudSync had no reputation to protect and no money to waste. When Vanessa joined the company 8 years earlier, Marcus had interviewed her in a borrowed conference room because CloudSync did not have a private meeting space. The office consisted of 10 people working around second-hand tables, drinking coffee from mismatched mugs, and competing for access to a single printer that jammed several times a day. The company's logo had been created by one of the engineers during a lunch break. Its website described the product in technical language no ordinary customer could understand. Marcus had offered Vanessa a salary lower than what she was already earning elsewhere. "What I can offer," he had told her, "is the chance to build something from the beginning." She had believed him. During her first month, Vanessa rewrote every page of the website. She interviewed the engineers until she understood the software well enough to explain it without jargon. She studied potential customers, analyzed competitors, and developed the company's first clear brand message. She persuaded a small industry publication to write about CloudSync when larger outlets ignored her calls. When that article brought in the company's first significant lead, she used the result to attract more coverage. She wrote press releases at midnight and answered reporters before sunrise. She designed the first customer case studies herself because CloudSync could not afford an agency. She planned product launches, prepared Marcus for interviews, and taught the executive team how to stop describing features and start explaining value. When the company landed its first major enterprise client, everyone celebrated with cheap champagne in paper cups. Marcus gave a speech thanking the sales team and engineers. Later that night, he found Vanessa cleaning up the presentation materials and admitted that her proposal had been the reason the client finally understood what CloudSync could do. "You gave us a language," he had said. "Before you, we had a product. Now we have a company." Vanessa had remembered that sentence for years. She remembered it during the long nights, when technical failures threatened product launches. She remembered it when journalists called during family dinners and when investors demanded new presentations with only a few hours' notice. She remembered it on birthdays spent at her desk and during vacations interrupted by emergencies. She had missed school events, canceled anniversary plans, and answered emails from hospital waiting rooms because CloudSync always seemed to need something only she could provide. Over time, the company grew from 10 employees to 50, then 100, then 200. It moved from the cramped original office into a modern building with glass walls, private meeting rooms, and an entire hallway dedicated to awards and press coverage. Most of the articles displayed on that wall existed because Vanessa had convinced someone to write them. The Forbes feature that attracted their first serious investors. The Wall Street Journal interview that introduced CloudSync to corporate clients. The technology awards that made the company appear established long before it truly was. The conference appearances that transformed Marcus from an unknown founder into a respected industry voice. Vanessa had written his speeches, refined his answers, and stood outside interview rooms, texting him reminders about the points he needed to emphasize. She had made him look prepared when he was terrified and visionary when he was uncertain. Now he could not bring himself to look at her. "Vanessa has been fundamental to CloudSync's journey," Marcus finally said. Her name caused a visible shift in the room. Several people glanced toward her and then immediately looked away. "We are deeply grateful for everything she has contributed," he continued. "As part of this restructuring, she will be transitioning toward new opportunities." New opportunities. The words were so polished that they almost concealed the violence underneath them. Marcus made it sound as though Vanessa had chosen to leave. As though she had been offered a generous path into an exciting future. As though she had not arrived at work that morning expecting to finalize the company's next major campaign. As though she had not spent the previous month preparing an investor presentation Marcus planned to use during the Series C funding process. There had been no private conversation. No warning. No performance review. No opportunity to respond. Instead, he had chosen to announce her replacement in front of everyone she had worked with, managed, trained, defended, and trusted. A few employees began to clap when Marcus invited Isabella to speak. The applause started hesitantly, then grew as more people joined, perhaps because they were uncomfortable, perhaps because they were afraid not to participate. Vanessa listened to the sound with a strange sense of distance as though she were underwater. Isabella stood and adjusted her jacket. I am honestly so honored, she began, smiling at the audience. CloudSync has such amazing energy, and I really believe that brands grow when they create authentic emotional connections. People do not want to be marketed to anymore. They want to feel seen. They want community. They want stories that reflect who they are. Vanessa waited for something more. A strategy. Plan. A single detail about the company's customers, products, revenue objectives, market challenges, or competitive position. Instead, Isabella spoke about authenticity, personal values, and the importance of following cultural conversations. She mentioned her online community 3 times. She described her Instagram growth as proof that she understood modern audiences. She promised to make CloudSync more human, more visible, and more connected. She never once mentioned metrics. The applause that followed was louder. Vanessa felt something inside her settle into stillness. The pain remained, but beneath it a harder emotion was beginning to form. She could recognize a weak strategy when she heard one. She could recognize empty language even when it was presented with confidence and an attractive smile. Isabella did not understand what she had been given. She thought she had received a title, a large salary, and an impressive office. She had no idea that the position came with responsibility for every promise CloudSync made to its customers and every public mistake the company might make. She had no idea how quickly a brand could collapse when the person controlling its message cared more about attention than judgment. Perhaps she would learn. Perhaps she would fail. At that moment, Vanessa did not know which possibility frightened her more. Her phone vibrated inside her handbag. Then it vibrated again. And again. She lowered her hand beneath the table and glanced at the screen. 23 missed calls. 47 unread messages. Her pulse accelerated as she scanned the names. Rachel Cole, a technology journalist Vanessa had worked with for 5 years. Tyler Rhodes from CloudSync's public relations agency. Juliana Pierce, a marketing executive at a competing company. Several former clients. 2 recruiters. 3 people she had not spoken to in months. The newest message came from Rachel. Vanessa, what is happening? Is this real? Please call me before I publish anything. Another message included a screenshot. Vanessa opened it. The image came from Isabella's Instagram account. It had been posted almost an hour earlier before the meeting began. Isabella stood in the CloudSync lobby holding her phone above her face, smiling beneath the company's large blue logo. The caption read, "New role alert, brand director at CloudSync. When you believe in yourself, the universe delivers. So excited for this next chapter. Number brand director. Number manifest your dreams number. New beginning." The post already had thousands of likes, but Vanessa barely noticed the caption or the comments. She was looking at the background. Behind Isabella, slightly blurred, and walking across the lobby was Vanessa herself. The photograph must have been taken that morning shortly after she arrived. She could see her own face in profile. She looked distracted and uncertain, as though some part of her had sensed danger before her mind understood it. Her expression carried the beginning of confusion, the first shadow of the humiliation she had not yet experienced. Isabella had announced Vanessa's replacement before Vanessa had even been told she was losing her job. Worse, she had included Vanessa's face in the announcement. Whether it had been careless or deliberate, the result was the same. Vanessa's final morning as brand director had already become part of Isabella's victory story. Her pain had been reduced to background scenery in someone else's social media post. Vanessa scrolled through the comments. "You manifested this. Queen behavior. So proud of you. This is what happens when you trust the universe." Then she saw a different comment. "Isn't the woman in the background Vanessa Hayes? I thought she was CloudSync's brand director." Another person replied, "She built their entire brand. What is going on?" Vanessa locked the screen before anyone could see her hands trembling. At the front of the room, Marcus was discussing the transition schedule. Vanessa will work closely with Isabella over the next several days to transfer active campaigns, media contacts, client relationships, and strategic materials, he said. "We expect everyone to support this process and ensure a smooth handover. Train her." They expected Vanessa to train the woman taking her job. They wanted her to explain every campaign, introduce every journalist, transfer every relationship, and hand over 8 years of institutional knowledge as though she were passing along a folder before taking a vacation. They expected her to smile, cooperate, and protect the company from the consequences of its own decision. Isabella turned toward her and offered a warm, almost grateful smile. Vanessa wondered whether Isabella truly understood what was happening. Perhaps Marcus had told her Vanessa was leaving voluntarily. Perhaps she believed the position had simply become available. Perhaps she was too consumed by her own excitement to consider the woman whose face appeared behind her in that photograph. For one brief moment, Vanessa wanted to believe ignorance explained the cruelty. Then she noticed Isabella's phone. It was angled toward the stage recording. Even now, during the meeting in which Vanessa's career was being dismantled, Isabella was gathering content. The realization left Vanessa feeling exposed in a way the public announcement had not. Every reaction could become a clip. Every tear could become part of a celebratory montage. Every second of pain might be transformed into views, comments, and engagement. Vanessa straightened her back. She would not give Isabella that image. She would not become the broken, older woman in the background of someone else's success story. The meeting moved into a question-and-answer session. A young employee from product development asked Isabella how her influencer experience would translate into business-to-business marketing. Isabella smiled confidently. "At the end of the day, people are people," she replied. "Whether you are selling software or wellness products, it is about building trust and creating a feeling. My community has grown because I understand what people respond to emotionally." It was not entirely wrong, which somehow made it worse. She knew one piece of the work and mistook it for the whole profession. Another employee asked about the Q4 campaign. "I am still getting familiar with the details," Isabella said lightly. "But I already have so many ideas about making the brand more visually exciting." Vanessa had spent 5 months developing that campaign. It involved 6 customer segments, 3 international markets, a product launch, an investor narrative, and a carefully timed sequence of media announcements. Isabella thought it needed to be more visually exciting. A few people laughed politely. Vanessa looked toward Marcus. He appeared relieved. The announcement had gone according to plan. No one had challenged him. Vanessa had not caused a scene. The room remained controlled. Then she saw David. He stood near the voceators, partially hidden behind a group of senior managers. For an instant, relief moved through her. It was automatic, born from 19 years of marriage. David was there. Somehow, he had heard what was happening and had come to support her. Perhaps he would wait outside. Perhaps he would take her home. Perhaps when everything else had vanished, at least she would not have to face it alone. Their eyes met. David's expression was not shocked. He did not look confused or angry. He looked worried. Not worried for Vanessa, worried that she had seen him. Then he looked away. The small movement changed everything. Vanessa stared at him, trying to understand why her husband would be attending a private company meeting without telling her. David did business with several CloudSync clients, but he had no official role in the company. He had never attended an all-hands meeting before. He had complained for years that company events were boring and that Marcus enjoyed hearing himself talk. Yet he was there for this one, standing in the back, watching Isabella receive Vanessa's position. A strange detail surfaced from memory. 3 months earlier, David had casually mentioned that CloudSync needed younger marketing leadership. Vanessa had laughed and asked whether he was planning to steal her job. He had smiled, kissed her forehead, and said he was only repeating something he had heard from people in the industry. At the time, the comment had seemed harmless. Now it felt like a warning she had failed to recognize. Vanessa looked from David to Isabella. Isabella was answering another question, but her eyes briefly moved toward the back of the room, toward David. The glance lasted less than a second. It might have meant nothing. It might have meant everything. Vanessa's stomach tightened. She did not yet have enough information to name what she was feeling. She only knew that David's presence was not accidental, and that his refusal to meet her eyes carried more guilt than sympathy. The meeting finally ended with another round of applause. Employees began standing, closing laptops and gathering their belongings. Catered sandwiches waited on tables along the wall, as though everyone was expected to eat lunch and return to work after witnessing a colleague's public removal. Vanessa remained seated. Around her, people hesitated. Some clearly wanted to approach her but did not know what to say. Others escaped toward the doors before they could be forced to acknowledge what had happened. Hannah reached down and touched Vanessa's shoulder. "I am so sorry," she whispered. Vanessa looked up at her. "How long did you know?" Hannah's face crumpled. "Yesterday," she said. "Marcus told me yesterday. He made me promise not to say anything. He said there were legal issues and that telling you would make things worse." Vanessa wanted to be angry with her, but Hannah looked devastated. "Did everyone know?" "Not everyone. Some department heads. Your team found out this morning. This morning, they had spent hours sitting near her answering emails and discussing campaigns while knowing she would soon be removed. Vanessa nodded once. She could deal with that later. At the front of the room, Isabella stood beside Marcus, accepting congratulations. People shook her hand, welcomed her, and praised her online presence. She laughed easily, already comfortable in the center of attention. Vanessa stood. Her legs felt weak, but they held her. The room gradually quieted as people noticed her moving toward the stage. Marcus saw her approaching and straightened, uncertainty flashing across his face. Isabella turned with the same bright smile she had worn throughout the meeting. Vanessa stopped in front of her. Up close, Isabella looked even younger. Mid-20s, perhaps. Her makeup was flawless, but there was nervousness beneath her confidence now. She seemed unsure whether Vanessa intended to confront her. "Congratulations," Vanessa said. The word came out steady. Isabella blinked. "Thank you." She extended her hand. Vanessa looked at it for 1 second before taking it. Isabella's grip was soft and brief. "I am really excited to learn from everything you have built," she said. "Your work here is incredible." The compliment might have been sincere. That was almost more insulting than open arrogance. Everything Vanessa had built was apparently incredible enough to inherit, but not valuable enough to protect its creator. "I am sure you will find the position educational," Vanessa replied. Isabella's smile faltered slightly as though she sensed the warning but could not identify it. Vanessa released her hand and turned toward Marcus. He attempted a sympathetic expression. "Vanessa, I know this is difficult," he began. "I would have preferred to speak privately, but the timing—" "You could have spoken privately," she said. Marcus stopped. "You chose not to." Several employees were listening now. Vanessa could feel their attention, but she refused to look away from him. "We believed a company-wide announcement would create clarity," Marcus said carefully. "It created clarity," Vanessa replied. "Just not the kind you intended." His face tightened. "We should discuss the transition in my office." "There will be no transition meeting today. Vanessa, I am going to collect my personal belongings. HR can send the documents to my attorney once I have reviewed them." Marcus lowered his voice. "We need you to train Isabella on the active accounts." Vanessa glanced toward Isabella, who was watching the exchange with growing discomfort. "You should have considered that before announcing my replacement. Please do not make this more difficult than it needs to be." For the first time, anger cut cleanly through Vanessa's shock. "I am not the person who made this difficult." Marcus had no answer. Vanessa turned away before emotion could break through the control she had fought to maintain. She walked past the rows of employees, many of whom suddenly found reasons to study the floor. Hannah followed her into the hallway, but Vanessa stopped outside her office. "I need a few minutes alone." Hannah nodded, crying openly now. Vanessa entered the office and closed the door. Her name was still attached to it. Vanessa Hayes, brand director. The room looked exactly as it had that morning. Her laptop remained open beside the Q4 campaign documents. A framed photograph of Mia stood near the monitor. On the shelf were awards CloudSync had received for campaigns Vanessa had designed. A whiteboard displayed plans for the upcoming investor presentation. Everything suggested she still belonged there. She picked up the photograph of Mia, her personal notebooks, 2 books, a small plant, and the ceramic mug Hannah had given her for her birthday. She left the awards behind. They belonged to work she had already completed. She did not need physical proof that it had happened. Her phone vibrated continuously. More journalists. More colleagues. More screenshots of Isabella's announcement. One message came from Tyler at the PR agency. "The press is asking whether you resigned or were terminated. Marcus has not approved a response. Please do not comment publicly until we coordinate." Vanessa stared at the message. Even after firing her, they expected to control her voice. She placed the phone in her bag without replying. When she stepped into the hallway carrying the small box, conversations stopped. Luke stood near his desk, pale and miserable. "Vanessa, I wanted to tell you. But you did not," Marcus said. "I know what Marcus said." Luke swallowed. "I am sorry." Vanessa believed him, but she could not comfort him. Not then. She continued down the corridor and past the wall of press coverage she had spent years creating. Her own words appeared beneath photographs of Marcus smiling beside headlines about innovation growth and visionary leadership. None of the articles displayed her face, but she had shaped every sentence that made the company look successful. At the front desk, Katie covered her mouth when she saw the box. "This is wrong," she whispered. Vanessa offered the smallest nod she could manage. Then she crossed the lobby where Isabella had taken her celebratory photograph. The CloudSync logo rose behind the reception area, polished and bright. Vanessa remembered choosing that exact shade of blue because research showed it communicated trust and stability. Trust. The word almost made her laugh. She pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the afternoon sunlight. Only after reaching the parking lot did she realize she was holding her breath. She placed the box in the back seat, got into her car, and locked the doors. Her hands began to shake. For several minutes, she remained parked outside the building. Employees could see her from the upper windows, so she forced herself to start the engine and drive away. She had no destination in mind. She simply followed traffic until the CloudSync building disappeared behind her. 3 miles later, she pulled into the parking lot of a coffee shop she had never visited. She chose a space in the farthest corner, turned off the engine, and sat in silence. The shock arrived in waves. 8 years. 8 years of early mornings, emergency calls, canceled plans, impossible deadlines, and promises that the sacrifices would eventually matter. 8 years of believing she was building something that could not easily discard her because too much of the company carried her fingerprints. She had been wrong. CloudSync had not merely replaced her. It had rewritten her contribution as something outdated. Marcus had taken the experience that once made her essential and transformed it into evidence that she no longer belonged. Vanessa stared through the windshield at strangers entering and leaving the coffee shop. They carried drinks, laptops, and grocery bags. Their lives continued with ordinary problems, while hers had been divided into a before and an after by 4 words. Her phone lit up again. 53 missed calls. 72 messages. She opened the latest one. It was from David. "I heard what happened. We need to talk." Vanessa read the message twice. Heard what happened. He wrote as though he had not been standing in the room, as though he had not known, as though his eyes had not shifted toward Isabella when Marcus announced the position. Vanessa looked at the screenshot of Isabella's Instagram post again. She enlarged the image, studying every reflection in the glass lobby walls, every blurred figure, every detail she might have missed. Then she remembered the brief glance Isabella had directed toward the back of the conference room, toward David. A cold uneasiness spread through her chest. This was larger than a bad hiring decision. Larger than Marcus's obsession with appearing innovative. Larger than Isabella's ambition. Everyone else had known Vanessa was about to lose her job. Her managers knew. Her team knew. The journalists knew. Isabella's followers knew. Her husband may have known most of all. Vanessa sat alone in the locked car while the phone continued ringing beside her. One question repeated in her mind, becoming more disturbing each time she considered it. Why had the entire world been warned that Vanessa Hayes was about to lose everything, while Vanessa herself had been kept completely in the dark? Vanessa remained in the far corner of the coffee shop parking lot long after the engine had gone cold. The phone on the passenger seat continued to vibrate every few seconds, its screen lighting up with new calls, messages, and social media notifications. Each flash felt like another reminder that the worst moment of her professional life had already escaped beyond the walls of CloudSync. It was no longer private. Journalists knew. Competitors knew. Former colleagues knew. Thousands of strangers following Isabella online knew. Vanessa was the last person who had been allowed to understand what was happening to her. She picked up the phone and opened Isabella's Instagram profile. The account loaded beneath a polished photograph of Isabella standing on a beach in a white dress, one hand raised against the sunlight. Her biography had already been updated. Lifestyle creator. Brand director at CloudSync. Manifesting abundance. Business inquiries by email. The title had been added before Vanessa had even cleared her office. The follower count rose as she watched it. 201,000. Then 201,112. Isabella's announcement was spreading through the platform, fueled by congratulations, curiosity, and speculation about the woman blurred in the background. Vanessa opened the newest post again. Isabella stood beneath the CloudSync logo, smiling with her chin tilted slightly upward. The image had been composed carefully enough to appear spontaneous. Her cream-colored suit matched the pale blue walls of the lobby. Her hair caught the natural light coming through the glass entrance. The company logo occupied the upper left corner, large enough to establish credibility without distracting from her face. Vanessa recognized the method. Every element had been positioned for maximum engagement. The caption framed the promotion as a reward for belief and persistence. When you trust your path, the right doors open. I am beyond excited to begin this chapter as brand director at CloudSync. Proof that the universe always recognizes aligned energy. The comments were filled with celebration. This is your moment. You worked so hard for this. You manifested your dream job. A brand director before 30. Iconic. Vanessa read the words until they began to blur together. Worked so hard. The phrase hurt more than it should have. Isabella might have worked hard to build her online following. Vanessa was not arrogant enough to deny that maintaining a successful personal brand required discipline. But none of those followers had seen the years Vanessa spent making CloudSync credible. They had not watched her work through product failures, funding crises, reputation threats, and impossible deadlines. They did not know she had written the language Isabella was now repeating in interviews. They did not understand that the office, the logo, and the title in the photograph existed because someone else had spent 8 years constructing them. To Isabella's audience, the promotion was a motivational story. To Vanessa, it was theft presented as inspiration. She scrolled through the rest of Isabella's profile. There were photographs of carefully arranged breakfasts, boutique fitness classes, beauty products, rooftop bars, and expensive hotel rooms. Every image carried the same warm color palette. Every caption contained a lesson about self-belief, emotional alignment, boundaries, or becoming the person one was meant to be. One post showed Isabella standing beside a mirror in workout clothes. The life you want begins when you stop accepting less than you deserve. Another showed a glass of champagne beside a city skyline. Never apologize for choosing yourself. Vanessa felt an almost physical disgust at the words. Isabella had built an entire public identity around empowerment while quietly participating in the destruction of another woman's career. She kept scrolling. The posts went back months. Product partnerships, restaurant visits, beach trips, inspirational videos, a photograph from an art gallery, another from a weekend resort. Then Vanessa stopped. The image had been posted 6 months earlier. Isabella sat at a table in a dimly lit Italian restaurant, smiling toward the camera with a glass of red wine in one hand. A small candle illuminated her face. Behind her, reflected faintly in a decorative mirror, sat a man. The reflection was not clear enough to draw the attention of a casual follower, but Vanessa recognized him immediately. David. Her husband was leaning forward in his chair, smiling at something Isabella had said. Vanessa enlarged the photograph with trembling fingers. The angle revealed only part of his face, but there was no possibility of mistake. She knew the shape of his jaw, the line of his shoulders, and the habit he had of pressing one hand against the table when he laughed. He was wearing the navy shirt she had bought for his birthday the previous year. David had claimed he did not like the way the collar sat against his neck. Vanessa had seen him wear it only twice. He wore it for Isabella. She read the caption. The best conversations happen when the universe places exactly the right person across the table from you. Some connections arrive when you need them most. The photograph had been posted in June. Vanessa and David had celebrated their 19th wedding anniversary in June. He had taken her to the small restaurant where they had gone on their first official date. He had held her hand across the table and told her that even after nearly 2 decades, she was still the only person who truly understood him. He had ordered the wine she liked, given her a silver necklace, and promised they would make more time for each other once CloudSync completed its funding round. 3 days earlier, according to the date on Isabella's post, David had been having dinner with another woman. Vanessa's stomach tightened. She went back further. A photograph from July showed Isabella at an outdoor concert. In the corner of the image, a man's hand rested against the railing beside her. A silver watch was visible beneath the cuff. Vanessa had given David that watch for his 50th birthday. Another post from August showed 2 coffee cups on a table. One was beside Isabella's handbag. The other sat beside a set of car keys Vanessa recognized as David's. In September, Isabella posted from a hotel overlooking the ocean. Sometimes you have to step away from ordinary life to remember what you are building toward. David had told Vanessa he was attending a sales conference that weekend. Vanessa opened the calendar on her phone and compared the date. The conference had ended on Friday afternoon. He had returned home Sunday evening. She stared at the screen as the truth assembled itself from details she had once ignored. The late client dinners. The weekends away. The phone calls he took in the garage. The way he had recently changed his passcode and claimed it was required by his company's security policy. The new interest in fitness, expensive clothes, and restaurants Vanessa had never heard him mention before. She had explained each change separately because she trusted him. She had assumed work was stressful. She had believed the man who had shared her life for 19 years would not construct an entire second existence behind her back. Now the evidence sat publicly on Isabella's account disguised as lifestyle content. David had not simply cheated. He had allowed their affair to be documented in fragments, confident that Vanessa would never look closely enough to recognize him. The phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen. Vanessa watched it ring until the call ended. A second later, he called again. She answered. Vanessa. His tone was controlled, gentle, and carefully concerned. It was the voice he used when trying to calm a difficult client or persuade someone that a serious problem was less dangerous than it appeared. I heard what happened, he said. Are you all right? Vanessa looked at the photograph of him reflected behind Isabella. You heard what happened. Yes. Marcus called me after the meeting. I know this must have been a shock. You were in the room. Silence. The pause lasted only a moment, but it was enough. I came because I knew the announcement might be difficult, he said. I thought it would be better if I was nearby. Nearby for whom? What does that mean? You were standing at the back of the room. You watched Marcus give my position to Isabella. And you did not come near me. You did not speak to me. You looked away when I saw you. I did not want to make a public scene. You were not there for me. Vanessa, you are upset, I understand that. His calmness made her angrier than denial would have. Do not tell me what I feel. I am trying to help. Then explain why your girlfriend was given my job. The silence that followed was different. He did not laugh. He did not sound confused. He did not ask what she was talking about. Vanessa closed her eyes. You know, she said. Vanessa. I found the photographs. June, July, August, the hotel in September. You were careless enough to appear in the background of her life because you assumed I would never look. It is not what you think. That sentence should embarrass you. The situation is complicated. It is not complicated. You have been sleeping with the woman who replaced me at CloudSync. David exhaled heavily. I did not plan for you to find out this way. That is the only part you did not plan. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting you knew she was getting my position. I am suggesting you helped her. I am suggesting your presence in that conference room was not an act of support. Marcus made his own decision. That was not my question. I have done business with CloudSync. I know Marcus. We have had conversations about the company's direction. And during those conversations, did you tell him Isabella should have my job? No one said she should have your job. She has my title, my office, my team, and my campaigns. What exactly do you believe she has? David's voice hardened slightly. CloudSync was already considering changes. So you helped them find a replacement. I made an introduction. Vanessa felt something inside her go still. The admission was quieter than a confession, but it carried the same force. You introduced Isabella to Marcus. She was looking for a more stable opportunity. Marcus said the company needed someone with a stronger social media presence. I thought they should talk. While you were having an affair with her, I did not expect it to lead to this. Do you expect me to believe that? I did not control the hiring process. But you opened the door. Vanessa, you need to understand that your role had been under discussion for months. Marcus was worried that the brand was becoming too corporate. The board wanted a younger audience. The company was changing. You are repeating his speech. I am explaining what happened. No, you are trying to convince me that this was inevitable, so your part in it appears harmless. That is not fair. Fair. The word escaped her with a sharp laugh. You arranged a meeting between your mistress and my boss. She was hired into the position I created. You attended the announcement and watched me discover the truth in front of 200 people. Now you are calling to tell me this is not fair to you. Our marriage has been in trouble for a long time. There it was. The shift. David moved away from defending his actions and began constructing a reason Vanessa had caused them. You have been consumed by CloudSync for years, he continued. You were never home mentally even when you were physically present. Every dinner was interrupted by emails. Every trip turned into a work session. I kept trying to reach you, but the company always came first. Vanessa tightened her grip on the phone. Some of what he said was true. She had missed dinners. She had answered messages during vacations. She had carried the pressure of CloudSync into their home and allowed work to consume space that should have belonged to her family. She had believed she was making temporary sacrifices for a shared future. She had not realized how permanent those sacrifices had become. But truth used as context was different from truth used as a weapon. I work too much, she said. I know that. David seemed surprised by the admission. I should have protected more time for our family. I should have listened when you said I was distracted. I should have asked more questions about how you were feeling. Exactly. No. Her voice was steady. That does not excuse what you did. My mistakes in our marriage did not force you to lie to me for 6 months. They did not force you to sleep with another woman. They did not force you to help her take my job. You had choices. You made the cruelest ones available. I did not help her take your job. You introduced her to Marcus. That is not the same thing. You knew he was dissatisfied with the brand. You knew Isabella wanted a salary. You knew she had no experience. You connected them anyway. I thought she could bring something new. To the company or to your life. David said nothing. Vanessa looked again at Isabella's restaurant photograph. How long? What? How long have you been sleeping with her? This conversation is not productive. 6 months. I do not want to discuss this over the phone. Then tell me when you plan to discuss it. After she was established in my position, after the funding round, after you had moved your money, which part of the plan required me to remain ignorant? You are making assumptions. I saw you in the meeting, David. I told you why I was there. No. You gave me a version that made you sound compassionate. I did care what happened to you. People who care do not watch from the back of a room while someone they love is publicly humiliated. The line went silent. When David spoke again, his voice was colder. Our marriage was already over. You simply did not notice. The words struck her with unexpected force. Not because she believed him completely, but because they revealed how he had justified everything to himself. If the marriage had already ended, then his affair was not betrayal. If Vanessa had failed to notice, then her ignorance was her responsibility. If CloudSync had already planned to replace her, then his introduction of Isabella was merely convenient. David had arranged every fact into a version of the story in which he was not cruel, only practical. You are right about one thing, Vanessa said quietly. I did not notice. David inhaled, perhaps, believing she was surrendering. I did not notice that my husband had become someone capable of helping destroy my career to make his affair more convenient. I did not notice that the man I trusted with my home, my money, and my daughter had decided honesty was optional. I missed a great deal. Vanessa. But I see you now. She ended the call. David called back immediately. She silenced the phone. For several minutes, Vanessa remained motionless, listening to the muffled sounds of traffic beyond the car. The discovery of the affair should have created chaos inside her. Instead, her thoughts felt strangely clear. David had admitted making the introduction. He had acknowledged discussing CloudSync's direction with Marcus. He had known about the leadership change before the meeting. He had attended the announcement. The remaining questions were no longer about whether he had been involved, but how deeply. Her phone displayed a message from Mia. Mom, please come home. I need to tell you something about Dad. Vanessa read it twice. A new fear settled over her. Mia was 17. She was supposed to be at school until the afternoon and then attend debate club. The message had arrived in the middle of the day. Vanessa started the car. The drive home normally took 20 minutes. That afternoon it felt endless. Every traffic light seemed designed to hold her in place while her mind raced ahead. She imagined Mia discovering the Instagram post at school. Perhaps another student had shown it to her. Perhaps she had already known about Isabella. Perhaps David had dragged their daughter into the deception. Vanessa gripped the steering wheel more tightly. When she turned onto their street, she saw Mia sitting on the front steps. Her backpack lay beside her. Her knees were pulled toward her chest, and her face was buried in her arms. She did not look up until Vanessa closed the car door. Mom. The word broke apart in her throat. Mia's eyes were swollen. Black mascara had run beneath them in uneven streaks. She looked exhausted, frightened, and younger than she had that morning. Vanessa sat beside her. Why are you home? I could not stay at school. What happened? Mia covered her face with both hands. I am sorry. Vanessa's chest tightened. For what? I should have told you. I kept telling myself I would, but Dad said he was going to fix it. Then today, everyone started sharing Isabella's post, and I saw you in the background, and I realized you did not know anything. Vanessa looked at her daughter carefully. How long have you known about Isabella? Mia began crying again. Since June. The same month as the restaurant photograph. The same month as Vanessa and David's anniversary. How did you find out? I was using Dad's iPad for a school project. Messages kept appearing at the top of the screen. They were from someone named Isabella. At first I thought she was a client, but then one message said she missed waking up next to him. Mia pressed her hands against her eyes. I opened the conversation. I know I should not have, but I did. There were months of messages, pictures, plans, things I wish I had never seen. Vanessa swallowed the pain rising in her throat. What did you do? I confronted him the next day. I was so angry. I told him he had to tell you or I would. And what did he say? He started crying. Mia gave a bitter, disbelieving laugh. He said he had made a terrible mistake. He said he was ending it. He said telling you immediately would destroy the family before he had a chance to fix anything. Vanessa could already hear David's logic. He asked you to keep it secret. He made me promise. Mia, I know I should not have agreed. No. Tell me exactly what he said. Mia stared at the pavement. He said you were under too much pressure at work. He said CloudSync was going through the funding process, and that if you found out you might lose control and ruin your career. He said if you two divorced because I told you it would be something I would have to live with for the rest of my life. Vanessa closed her eyes. David had not simply asked for time. He had placed the survival of the family on the shoulders of a 16-year-old girl. He told me keeping quiet was protecting you, Mia continued. He said adults make mistakes and that children should not interfere in marriages because they do not understand everything. He kept saying he would end it, but he did not. Mia shook her head. At first I thought he had. Then I heard him talking to her in the garage. After that, he started hiding his phone better. He changed the password on the iPad. He was more careful, but I could tell it was still happening. Why did you not come to me then? I wanted to. Her voice collapsed. Every day I wanted to. But you were so busy, and you looked so tired, and he kept saying 1 more week. He said he was trying to separate from her without causing a scandal. Then he said her family was unstable and she needed help. Then he said he was waiting until after your funding round. There was always another reason. Mia wiped her face with her sleeve. I felt like I was lying to you every time you asked where he was. I hated being at dinner with both of you. I hated watching him touch your hand or ask about your day. I kept thinking you would look at me and know. Vanessa reached for her daughter's hand. Mia, none of this is your fault. It feels like it is. It is not. I helped him lie. You were manipulated by an adult you trusted. I am almost 18. You were 16 when this began. I should have been stronger. No. Vanessa turned toward her fully. You were placed in an impossible situation. Your father told you that honesty would destroy our family, and that silence would protect me. He used your love for both of us against you. That responsibility belongs to him, not to you. Mia's face crumpled. I watched you trust him. I trusted him because he was my husband. That was his responsibility to honor. I knew he was hurting you. You did not hurt me. But if I had told you in June, maybe today would not have happened. Vanessa felt the weight of the possibility, but she refused to allow it to fall on Mia. What happened today was planned by adults who understood exactly what they were doing. You did not make Marcus replace me. You did not introduce Isabella to the company. You did not create David's choices. Mia looked at her. You know, he introduced her. He admitted it. Fresh anger appeared in Mia's expression. Of course he did. The bitterness in her voice sounded too old. Vanessa squeezed her hand. Is there something else? Mia hesitated. Yes. She glanced toward the house. Can we go inside? They entered through the front door. The house looked the same as it had that morning. David's shoes remained beneath the bench near the entrance. His jacket hung from a hook. A framed family photograph stood on the hallway table showing the 3 of them smiling during a vacation 2 years earlier. Vanessa felt as though she had entered a museum displaying a life that had never existed in the form she remembered. In the kitchen, she filled the kettle out of habit. Neither of them wanted tea, but the familiar motion gave her hands something to do. Mia sat at the table and stared at her phone. Vanessa placed 2 cups between them and sat across from her. What else do you need to tell me? Mia opened the voice memo application. Last week, Dad was in the garage talking to Isabella. I went downstairs because I needed a charger from his car. I heard him say Marcus's name. Vanessa's attention sharpened. I stayed near the door. I know it was wrong to listen, but after everything, I needed to know what they were planning. You recorded them. Mia nodded. I had started recording his calls whenever I could. Not because I wanted to use them against him. I just needed proof that I was not imagining things. Every time I confronted him, he made me feel like I had misunderstood. She selected a file. It is 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Mia placed the phone on the table and pressed play. At first, there was only faint background noise. Then David's voice came through clearly. Marcus owes me. I sent 3 major clients to CloudSync this year. He will take the meeting. Isabella responded. But meeting me is not the same as hiring me. He already thinks Vanessa's approach is outdated. The board has been pressuring him to make the company look younger before the funding round. You are exactly what he wants, even if he does not know it yet. Vanessa stared at the phone. Isabella sounded uncertain. What happens to her? David laughed softly. Do not worry about Vanessa. She will land somewhere else. She is good at what she does. Then why would they replace her? Because companies do not only hire based on competence. Marcus wants attention. You bring attention. Your audience makes CloudSync look relevant. And you really think he will give me the director title? If I position it correctly. There was a pause. Then David continued. You need a real salary. I cannot keep covering your expenses forever, especially if I leave the marriage. If you get established at CloudSync, you will be financially independent. That gives us options. Vanessa felt the room contract around her. Isabella's voice became quieter. You said leaving her would cost you too much. It will. The house retirement accounts legal fees. She earns more than I do, but that does not mean I walk away untouched. I need time to arrange things. And getting me hired helps with that. It solves two problems. You get a job with money and credibility. Vanessa is pushed out of the company she is obsessed with, which makes the separation easier because she will be focused on rebuilding her career instead of fighting me. Mia looked at her mother, but Vanessa could not move. In the recording, Isabella gave a nervous laugh. You are terrible. I am practical. What if she finds out about us? Not until it no longer matters. By then you will be established at CloudSync and I will have my finances in order. We deal with the fallout on our terms. The recording ended. The kitchen fell silent. Vanessa stared at the dark screen of Mia's phone. The affair had not merely existed alongside her dismissal. Her dismissal was part of the affair. David had viewed her career as a piece on a board. Removing her from CloudSync would distract her, weaken her, and give Isabella financial independence. He had calculated that Vanessa's professional humiliation would make his exit from their marriage easier. He had not simply chosen another woman. He had designed a transition plan. Mom. Mia's voice sounded far away. Vanessa looked up. Send me the recording. Mia blinked. What? Send the original file to my email. Do not edit it. Do not rename it. Mia followed the instructions, her fingers trembling. Vanessa's phone issued. She downloaded the file and immediately uploaded copies to 2 separate cloud storage accounts. Then she emailed one copy to an address David did not know she had. Why are you doing that? Because evidence disappears when the wrong people know it exists. Mia looked frightened. Are you going to expose him? I do not know yet. Will I have to testify? The question cut through Vanessa's concentration. No one is going to force you into the center of this. But I recorded it. You gave me information. What happens next is an adult responsibility. Mia nodded, although she did not look reassured. Vanessa reached across the table. I need you to hear something clearly. I am not going to use you as a weapon against your father. He did that when he made you carry his secret. I will not repeat it. Mia squeezed her hand. What are you going to do? Vanessa looked at the phone. For the first time since the meeting, the shock was receding. In its place came a colder, more organized awareness. She had spent her career building narratives from scattered facts. She knew how to determine what information mattered, how to verify it, how to establish a timeline, and how to preserve evidence before responding publicly. Those same skills could now protect her. I am going to understand everything she said. She opened a new note and began listing dates. June, Mia discovered the affair. June, restaurant photograph. July, concert image. August, coffee shop photograph. September, hotel trip. 3 months earlier, David mentioned younger marketing leadership. Previous month, Marcus delayed Vanessa's budget requests. Current week, Isabella's hiring finalized. Current morning, Isabella announced the position online before Vanessa was informed. Current afternoon, David admitted making the introduction. She asked Mia to forward any messages from David that referred to the affair or asked her to remain silent. Mia had deleted some, but several remained in archived conversations. One message from July read, "Please give me time. Telling your mother now will only hurt her. You do not want to be responsible for destroying the family." Another from August said, "I promised I am handling it. Stay out of adult matters." Vanessa took screenshots and saved them with the date and time visible. The more she documented, the less powerless she felt. Pain remained in every discovery, but it no longer arrived without structure. Each piece of information became part of a pattern. Each date contradicted David's claim that events had simply unfolded beyond his control. He had planned. He had persuaded. He had delayed. He had manipulated Mia. He had connected Isabella to Marcus. He had watched Vanessa lose her job and expected to control the aftermath. Vanessa created a folder titled Timeline. Inside, she placed the recording screenshots, photographs, messages, and a written summary of her call with David. She documented his exact admissions while they remained fresh in her memory. Mia watched silently. "You look different," she said after several minutes. "How?" "Like you are at work." Vanessa almost smiled. "I suppose I am. What does that mean?" "It means I know how to handle a crisis." The phone buzzed again. This time the message came from Juliana Pierce. "Look at Isabella's latest posts immediately. She is filming inside CloudSync. Confidential material is visible." Vanessa opened Instagram. Isabella had posted 4 new pieces of content since the meeting. The first was a short video titled First Day as a Brand Director. Isabella stood in front of a mirror arranging her clothes while music played. The caption celebrated stepping into a leadership identity before feeling fully ready. The second showed her walking through the CloudSync lobby, waving at employees and speaking directly to the camera. "Everyone here has been so welcoming," she said. "The energy is incredible. I already feel like this is exactly where I am supposed to be." Several employees appeared uncomfortable in the background. The third video was an office tour. Vanessa watched it once, then again. On the third viewing, she paused every few seconds. Isabella moved through the marketing floor while narrating casually. She showed the open workspace, the kitchen, the rooftop area, and the glass conference rooms. She appeared unaware that cameras did not simply record the person holding them, they captured everything in the frame. Behind her, a whiteboard displayed the Q4 product roadmap. The release timeline was legible. So were the names of features still under development. In another section of the video, Isabella sat at Vanessa's former desk. On the cabinet behind her lay a printed investor presentation. Revenue projections, customer acquisition costs, retention figures, and competitive weaknesses were visible when the camera moved closer. Vanessa paused the screen and enlarged the frame. The information was not vague. A competitor could study it. An investor could question it. A journalist could publish it. A malicious actor could exploit it. The fourth post was worse. Isabella had filmed part of a strategy meeting through the glass wall of a conference room. Marcus stood beside a presentation screen discussing the Series C funding model. The slide contained projected valuation, customer churn, operating losses, and the amount of cash CloudSync needed to remain stable through the following year. Isabella had added the caption, "Big conversations happening today. So grateful to finally have a seat at the table." Vanessa read the comments. At first, followers praised the office and Isabella's confidence. Then professionals began noticing what she had revealed. "Is that confidential financial data behind you? You should delete this immediately. The roadmap is visible at 018. Does CloudSync have a security team? This is a serious information leak." Isabella had not responded. The videos remained online. Vanessa took screenshots and screen recordings before anyone could remove them. She saved copies with timestamps and sent them to Juliana. "I have everything. Do not contact CloudSync yet." Juliana replied instantly. "They are going to implode." Vanessa looked at the screen. Only hours earlier, Marcus had described Isabella as the future of authentic brand building. Now she was broadcasting information Vanessa had spent months protecting. The danger was not merely embarrassment. CloudSync's upcoming product release depended on secrecy. The funding process required strict control over financial disclosures. Customer contracts included confidentiality provisions. A single careless post could damage negotiations, trigger legal questions, or give competitors an advantage. Isabella did not understand the boundaries between personal access and corporate ownership. To her, every room was a backdrop. Every conversation was content. Every achievement existed to be displayed. Vanessa had spent 8 years teaching CloudSync that trust had to be earned through discipline. Isabella was dismantling that trust because attention felt more valuable than caution. Mia leaned closer to the phone. "Is she allowed to post that?" "No." "What happens now?" "Someone will tell her to remove it." "But people already saw it." "Yes." Vanessa scrolled through the growing comments. Screenshots were already circulating outside Instagram. A technology forum had reposted the roadmap. Someone on social media had enlarged the investor slide and begun analyzing CloudSync's financial weaknesses. The damage was spreading faster than any internal communications team could contain. Vanessa's first instinct was to call Hannah. The second was to contact Tyler from the PR agency. The third was to warn Marcus. She stopped herself. They had replaced her. They had chosen Isabella's reach over Vanessa's judgment. They had decided experience was an obstacle and visibility was leadership. They had announced that decision publicly and expected Vanessa to train the person taking her place. She no longer worked for CloudSync. Its emergency was not automatically her responsibility. Still, she thought of the employees who had no role in the decision. Hannah, Luke, Priscilla, and the others who might lose clients, funding, or jobs because Marcus wanted to appear modern. She thought of customers whose private information could be exposed. She thought of the brand she had built and felt the old instinct to protect it. Then she remembered David's voice on the recording. She will be focused on rebuilding her career instead of fighting me. He had expected chaos to make her weak. Vanessa would not allow that. She would not rush back into CloudSync to clean up a disaster for people who had discarded her. She would not publicly attack Isabella before she understood the larger plan. She would not confront David again while he still believed she possessed only fragments of the truth. She would gather evidence. She would protect Mia. She would review the finances. She would speak to a lawyer. She would decide when and how the truth became useful. The difference between revenge and strategy was timing. Vanessa closed Instagram and looked at her daughter. "Do not tell your father you gave me the recording." Mia nodded. "What should I say if he asks?" "Do not lie. Tell him you are not discussing me with him. He will get angry. Then send me the message and do not respond." Mia studied her mother's face. "Are we going to be okay?" Vanessa wanted to answer immediately, but she refused to offer a promise based only on hope. She thought about the job she had lost, the marriage that had already been dismantled without her knowledge, and the money David had mentioned arranging before leaving. She did not yet know what he had done financially. She did not know how deeply Marcus had been influenced or whether Isabella understood the full purpose of the plan. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. David no longer controlled what she knew. "We are going to find out exactly what he did," Vanessa said. "Then we are going to make decisions based on facts, not fear." Mia's shoulders relaxed slightly. Vanessa reopened her laptop. She created another folder titled CloudSync Exposure and placed every copy of Isabella's posts inside it. She documented the visible roadmap, financial model, pricing strategy, customer information, and investor presentation. She wrote down the time each video had appeared and the number of views. The first office tour had already passed 30,000. The strategy meeting video had reached almost 50,000. Every refresh increased the number. Vanessa watched it happen with a combination of horror and clarity. For years, she had protected CloudSync from careless statements, premature disclosures, and public mistakes. She had taught executives to check what appeared behind them during interviews. She had created social media approval procedures, confidentiality guidelines, and crisis protocols. Marcus had dismissed that discipline as traditional. Now the woman chosen to replace her was turning the company's confidential future into entertainment, one post at a time. Vanessa no longer wondered whether CloudSync had made a mistake. The mistake was already visible to thousands of people. She looked at the files she had gathered, the affair photographs, David's messages to Mia, the audio recording, the Instagram videos, and the timeline connecting them. Only that morning, Vanessa had believed she was a successful executive with a difficult but intact marriage. By evening, she understood that her husband had used his business relationships to place his mistress inside her company, weaken her career, secure the other woman's income, and prepare an exit that protected his own finances. But David had miscalculated. He believed Vanessa's identity depended on her title. He believed humiliation would make her collapse. He believed she would be too devastated to investigate. Instead, every act of betrayal was giving her a clearer map. Vanessa saved the final screenshot, locked the folder, and backed it up in 3 separate locations. Then she looked at Isabella's smiling face on the screen and understood the irony of what Marcus had done. CloudSync had removed the woman who knew how to protect its reputation and replaced her with someone who could destroy it before the end of her first day. That night, after Mia finally went upstairs, Vanessa remained alone at the kitchen table with her laptop open in front of her. The house was silent in a way it had never been before. Usually, David's presence filled the rooms even when he was not speaking. There would be the sound of the television in the living room, the refrigerator door opening, his footsteps moving between the garage and the hallway, or the low murmur of a business call taken behind a closed door. Now, every familiar sound was absent. His jacket still hung near the front entrance. A pair of his shoes remained beneath the bench. His coffee mug sat upside down beside the sink, washed and ready for the next morning, as though he were expected to return and continue the life they had shared. Vanessa looked at those ordinary objects and felt nothing familiar. They no longer represented home. They were evidence of how completely one person could inhabit a life while secretly preparing to abandon it. Mia's recording was saved in 3 locations. The screenshots from Isabella's Instagram account were organized by date. Vanessa had documented the phone call in which David admitted introducing Isabella to Marcus. She had also written down every detail she could remember from the meeting at CloudSync. Yet one sentence from the recording continued to trouble her. "I need time to arrange things." David had not explained what those things were. Vanessa knew how he thought. He disliked uncertainty. He built plans around worst-case scenarios, negotiated every contract aggressively, and kept spreadsheets for vacations months before they traveled. If he intended to leave a 19-year marriage, he would not act without calculating the financial impact. The question was not whether he had prepared. The question was what he had already done. Vanessa opened the website for their joint bank account. She almost never reviewed the daily transactions. David had handled household finances for years. They had divided responsibilities in a way that once seemed practical. Vanessa earned more, worked longer hours, and managed most decisions involving Mia's education and family scheduling. David paid the utilities, monitored the mortgage, handled insurance renewals, and balanced their shared accounts. They met with a financial advisor twice a year. The statements always appeared organized. Vanessa had never seen a reason to look more closely. She entered the password and waited for the account summary to load. At first, nothing looked alarming. Their checking account contained enough money to cover regular expenses. The savings account was lower than she remembered, but not low enough to create immediate panic. Their mortgage payment had been made on time. The credit cards showed no overdue balances. David had not been reckless enough to create obvious chaos. He had hidden his actions inside patterns that looked ordinary. Vanessa selected the shared credit card and downloaded 12 months of statements. She began with the most recent month. There were grocery purchases, gas stations, utility payments, pharmacy charges, and subscriptions she recognized. Then she saw a charge from a restaurant called Angelo's Italian Bistro, $258. The transaction took place on a Thursday evening 3 weeks earlier. David had told her he was attending a client dinner in Oakland that night. Vanessa opened her calendar. She had been at CloudSync until nearly 10, preparing the investor presentation. Mia had eaten at a friend's house. David returned after midnight and said the client meeting had gone well. Angelo's was not in Oakland. It was located downtown, less than 3 blocks from the apartment building visible in one of Isabella's Instagram posts. Vanessa searched the previous statement. Oceanfront Grill, $324. That payment appeared on the weekend David claimed he was at a sales conference. The month before that, there was Castaway Bar and Lounge, $218. Then a boutique hotel. Isabella, a jewelry store. The charges did not appear every week. They were spaced carefully, mixed among ordinary purchases, so that no single month looked dramatically different from the others. Vanessa created a spreadsheet. She entered each transaction, the date, the amount, David's explanation for where he had been, and any Instagram post Isabella had published around the same time. The connections began appearing almost immediately. On the same evening, David spent more than $300 at Oceanfront Grill. Isabella posted a photograph of a sunset over the water. The night of the Castaway charge, she uploaded a picture of 2 cocktail glasses with the caption, "Some nights remind you what freedom feels like." A hotel charge matched the weekend she posted from the coast. A purchase at an expensive home furnishing store appeared 2 days before Isabella shared a video showing a new sofa in her apartment. The more Vanessa compared, the less accidental anything seemed. She moved on to cash withdrawals. $200, $400, $300. The transactions occurred mostly on Thursdays, usually from an ATM close to David's office. Individually, they were small enough to escape attention. Together, they added up to more than $3,000 over 6 months. There was no explanation attached to cash. That was the point. Then Vanessa noticed a recurring monthly payment. $3,500. The description read, "Premium Storage Solutions." The charge had appeared 7 times. Vanessa frowned. They did not have a storage unit. The previous spring they had discussed renting one while clearing out the garage, but they decided against it. Nothing in their house required $3,500 a month in storage costs. At that price, they could have rented an apartment. Vanessa searched for the company online. No website appeared. She tried variations of the name. Nothing. She searched the state business registry. There was no registered company called Premium Storage Solutions at the address listed on the transaction. The payment processor led to a limited liability company created 8 months earlier. The registered address belonged to a mailbox service. Vanessa wrote down every detail. 7 payments of $3,500 totaled $24,500. The first payment had been made in March, 1 month before Isabella's first photographs from the luxury apartment began appearing online. Vanessa opened Instagram again and found a video in which Isabella gave her followers a tour of her living room. The apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows, polished hardwood floors, a marble kitchen, island, and a view over the city. Isabella had described it as the result of finally choosing a space that matched the life she was creating. Vanessa paused the video when the camera passed a folder on the kitchen counter. A building name was visible. She searched it. Monthly rent for a 1-bedroom apartment started at $3,400. Vanessa stared at the figure. Premium Storage Solutions was not storage. It was Isabella's rent. David had been paying for his girlfriend's apartment with money taken from the account he shared with his wife. The discovery did not produce the explosive anger Vanessa expected. It created something colder. She pictured herself working late at CloudSync while David transferred money to Isabella. She remembered postponing repairs to their kitchen because he said they should preserve savings for Mia's college expenses. She remembered choosing a less expensive family vacation because David insisted they needed to be financially responsible. Meanwhile, he was funding a luxury apartment for another woman. Vanessa downloaded every statement and saved the files. She then logged into the home equity line of credit attached to their house. They had opened the account 3 years earlier after meeting with their financial advisor. The credit line provided access to $100,000. It was supposed to remain untouched, except for emergencies, major home repairs, or unexpected educational expenses. Vanessa remembered the advisor describing it as a safety net. She entered the password. The available balance appeared first. $8,000. Vanessa assumed she had misread it. She refreshed the page. The number remained unchanged. $8,000 available. $92,000 withdrawn. For several seconds she could not move. She opened the transaction history. The first withdrawal had occurred 18 months earlier. $10,000. 2 months later, another $15,000. Then $7,000. $12,000. $8,000. The amounts grew more frequent during the previous year. The most recent withdrawal, $12,000, had occurred only 3 weeks earlier. Vanessa had never authorized any of them. She had never received a notification. She checked the account settings. The alerts had been redirected to David's private email address. Her phone number had been removed from the notification list. The line of credit was jointly held, which meant David may have been legally able to draw funds without her signature, but the secrecy changed the meaning of every transaction. He had deliberately prevented her from seeing the withdrawals. The equity in their home had been converted into money she could not trace. $92,000. That amount represented more than emergency savings. It represented years of mortgage payments, delayed purchases, disciplined budgeting, and the financial security Vanessa believed they were building for Mia. A portion of it had almost certainly paid for Isabella's life. But the rent payments, restaurants, and visible expenses did not account for everything. Vanessa searched their email records for documents from the bank. Because most notifications went to David, she opened his laptop account from the family computer. He had not changed the password. The decision to open his email produced only a brief moment of hesitation. Under ordinary circumstances, Vanessa would have considered it an unacceptable invasion. But ordinary circumstances no longer existed. David had secretly taken money from jointly held assets while planning to leave the marriage. She typed the password. The inbox opened. Vanessa searched for the name of the lender first. Hundreds of automatic messages appeared. Confirmation notices, statements, withdrawal records, changes to account preferences. One message showed that David had requested paperless communication without consulting her. Another confirmed removal of Vanessa's phone number from account alerts. She saved both. Then she searched the word payment. Thousands of results appeared. Vanessa narrowed the date range to the previous 2 years. Receipts from an online platform called Poker Now Elite began appearing. The earliest transactions were small. $50, $75, $100. They looked like entertainment expenses, the kind a person might dismiss as an occasional hobby. Over time, the deposits increased. $500, $1,000, $2,000, several thousand within a single week. Vanessa opened the account summaries attached to the emails. David had played online poker late at night and during business trips. He often deposited more money immediately after a significant loss. The pattern was familiar even to someone who knew little about gambling. Lose chase, the loss increase, the risk lose again. She created a second spreadsheet. The total exceeded $65,000. That explained much of the missing home equity, but not all of it. Vanessa searched for terms such as balance overdue and final notice. That was when the name Mark Rossi first appeared. The earliest email had been sent almost a year earlier. Subject: payment schedule. David. As discussed, I am willing to extend the deadline provided you maintain the agreed monthly amount. I expect the first transfer by Friday. Mark. There was no reference to poker or a formal loan. The following message was less patient. You missed the second payment. Interest continues to accumulate. Contact me before this becomes a larger problem. Another arrived several months later. I have protected your professional reputation so far. Do not mistake patience for weakness. If this balance remains unresolved, I will pursue other methods of collection. Vanessa opened every email in the thread. David owed Mark Rossi $85,000. The exact origin of the debt was unclear. Some messages referred to private games. Others mentioned money Mark had advanced when David's online accounts were restricted. Mark did not appear to be a conventional lender. There were no contracts, repayment schedules from a financial institution, or official account statements. Only pressure, deadlines, threats. In one email, Mark wrote, "Your clients would be interested to know how you finance your habits. So would your employer. I would prefer not to involve them. Whether that remains possible depends on you." David replied within minutes. "I need more time. I am working on a solution." Mark answered, "You have been working on solutions for 9 months. Produce one." Vanessa leaned back from the screen. David had not been planning to leave only because he wanted Isabella. He was cornered. He owed more money than he could repay without exposing the gambling. He had already emptied most of their home equity. He was paying Isabella's rent and personal expenses. He was trying to maintain 2 lives while hiding both from Vanessa. His introduction of Isabella to CloudSync now had an obvious financial purpose. A high-paying position would make her less dependent on him. It would allow him to stop using shared family money to support her. It would also help him create the appearance that Isabella's success was independent rather than purchased with stolen assets. Vanessa searched Isabella's name in David's inbox. The results filled the screen. Some messages were romantic. Others were logistical. Vanessa ignored the intimate language as much as possible and focused on money. A receipt for a furniture delivery, $4,800. A payment for a car repair, $2,100. A mobile phone account. Monthly charges paid from one of David's cards. Parking tickets. Medical expenses. A gym membership. Flights. Restaurant reservations. Isabella had not merely received help with rent. David financed almost every visible part of her lifestyle. One email from Isabella read, "The landlord needs the next 3 months guaranteed. I cannot keep telling him the transfer is late." David replied, "I will handle it. Once CloudSync finalizes your package, this pressure stops." Another message said, "Marcus wants another conversation. He is worried you do not have formal corporate experience. Focus on your audience numbers and the brand partnerships. Do not talk too much about strategy. Let him imagine what you can bring." Isabella responded, "I thought you said the job was basically mine." David wrote, "It will be. I just need him to believe it was his decision." Vanessa felt a chill. That sentence revealed how deliberately David had managed Marcus. He had not simply recommended a candidate. He had shaped the conditions under which Marcus would choose her. Vanessa searched for Marcus's name. Emails between David and Marcus showed months of casual business discussions. At first, they concerned client referrals and industry contacts. Gradually, the conversations shifted toward CloudSync's image. David repeatedly mentioned that investors were interested in companies with younger leadership. He forwarded articles about influencer-driven brands. He suggested CloudSync's marketing had become institutional. He praised Vanessa's work while implying it belonged to an earlier stage of the company. One message read, "Vanessa was perfect for building credibility from zero. But the next phase may require someone who understands cultural momentum rather than traditional media." Marcus replied, "I have had similar concerns. She is excellent, but I worry we are becoming predictable." David answered, You do not need to remove what works overnight. Bring someone in with a different profile. Let the contrast make the answer obvious. Vanessa read the line twice. Let the contrast make the answer obvious. David had been planting doubt. He praised her enough to avoid appearing hostile, then reframed her strengths as limitations. Experience became predictability. Discipline became rigidity. Strategic control became an inability to understand culture. He did not attack her directly. He made Marcus believe replacing her was a forward-looking decision. The manipulation was sophisticated because it appealed to Marcus's deepest insecurity. CloudSync was preparing for a major funding round. Marcus wanted investors to see him as innovative, young-minded, and capable of leading the next stage of growth. David supplied a narrative that made Vanessa's removal feel necessary. But the emails still did not explain Mark Rossi's connection to CloudSync. Vanessa searched both names together. A message from Mark appeared 3 months earlier. Subject: proposal. David, there is a way to resolve part of your balance that benefits both of us. I am expanding my consulting work in the technology sector. CloudSync fits the profile I am targeting: strong growth, significant client information, and an upcoming financing event. Get me a meeting with Marcus. If I secure a consulting engagement, I will reduce your outstanding debt by $30,000. I need access at the executive level, not a ceremonial introduction. You know what influence you have. Use it. Mark, David replied the same day. I can get the meeting eventually, but Marcus is cautious about outside consultants. Mark answered. Then create an internal advocate. Vanessa's eyes moved to the next message. David wrote, I may have someone. Isabella is looking for a serious role. Marcus wants younger leadership and stronger social reach. If I get her inside, she can recommend you once she has credibility. Mark's reply came 2 hours later. Does she understand the arrangement? No. She thinks I am helping her build a career. That is enough. Can she be trusted? She wants attention and status. Give her language that makes the recommendation sound visionary, and she will repeat it. Mark responded. Then proceed. Once she is established, I position myself as the person who can convert visibility into growth. She endorses me. Marcus approves access. Your debt is reduced. David's answer was brief. Everyone wins. Mark replied. Not everyone. There was no further explanation. Vanessa sat absolutely still. The meaning of the arrangement was clear. Mark did not care about Isabella's career. David did not care whether she was qualified. She was a bridge. Her role inside CloudSync would provide Mark with an internal sponsor. Once she had enough authority, she could recommend him as a growth consultant. Marcus, already impressed by her audience and eager to justify his decision, would likely accept her suggestion. Mark would gain access to CloudSync. David would receive debt relief. Isabella would receive a title and salary. Marcus would receive the illusion of innovation. And Vanessa had to be removed because she would never have approved any of it. She knew CloudSync's vendor procedures. She would have reviewed Mark's background, asked for references, limited his system permissions, and questioned why a newly hired director was recommending an unknown consultant. Her experience was not merely unwanted. It was dangerous to the plan. Vanessa continued through the thread. 2 months earlier, Mark asked for an update. David replied, Marcus is moving more slowly than expected. He respects Vanessa, but the board conversation helped. I have emphasized that her media-first approach will not impress younger investors. Isabella is meeting him again Friday. Mark responded. Do not overplay it. The decision must feel like his. A week later, he is considering a restructure. Isabella would take brand director. Vanessa would be offered some kind of advisory transition or severance. Mark wrote, Good. Make sure Isabella understands that my consulting engagement is part of the growth strategy once she starts. David replied, She will do what I tell her. She wants the position too badly to ask questions. Vanessa felt anger rise for Isabella despite everything. Isabella had knowingly slept with a married man. She had accepted his help. She had celebrated Vanessa's humiliation without concern for the damage she caused. None of that made her innocent. But she did not appear to know the full plan. David had used her ambition just as Mark had used David's desperation. Isabella thought she was entering CloudSync as a powerful executive. In reality, she was an access point. The office videos made the danger worse. If Mark wanted internal data, Isabella's lack of judgment would make obtaining it easy. She had already demonstrated that she did not understand confidentiality. She viewed privileged information as visual scenery. She could grant access, share documents, or invite Mark into meetings without recognizing the risks. Vanessa searched Mark Rossi's name online. His professional profile appeared first. The photograph showed a man in his late 40s wearing a dark suit and an expression of controlled confidence. His biography described him as an independent growth strategist, specializing in operational transformation, market expansion, and investor readiness. The language was polished and vague. He listed several technology startups as previous clients. Vanessa opened each company in a separate tab. The first had suffered a major data breach 14 months after hiring Mark. The company lost several clients and was later acquired by a competitor at a fraction of its earlier valuation. The second had entered bankruptcy after confidential pricing information appeared in the hands of a rival. The third removed most of its leadership team following what newspapers described as internal governance failures. Mark's consulting periods ended shortly before each crisis became public. That pattern did not prove criminal behavior. Consultants often joined struggling companies. A business might hire someone like Mark because trouble already existed. His departure before collapse could have been coincidence, self-protection, or evidence that his recommendations failed. Vanessa refused to make conclusions without support. She searched industry forums. A 2-year-old discussion appeared on a founder community site. The title read, "Warning about growth consultants seeking excessive access." The author described hiring an outside advisor who insisted on access to customer records, financial projections, vendor contracts, and product development plans. Within months, competitors began using similar pricing models. A potential acquisition partner somehow obtained confidential weaknesses before negotiations. The consultant was not named because of legal threats, but several details matched Mark's public employment history. Another post referred to a strategist who entered startups through personal relationships with executives under financial pressure. A commenter wrote, "He does not hack systems. He gets legitimate access through people who owe him something. That makes everything harder to prove." Vanessa saved the page. She found an archived news story about a startup called Vertex Loop. The company hired Mark as an operational advisor. 6 months later, proprietary customer analytics appeared in a competitor's investor presentation. Vertex Loop sued several unnamed parties, but the case settled privately. Mark's profile did not mention Vertex Loop. An old conference brochure did. Vanessa found his name listed as interim growth advisor during the exact period before the leak. She added it to the timeline. Then she searched public court records. There were no convictions and no clear civil judgment against him. A few disputes had been settled. One former client accused him of breach of contract, but the case was dismissed after an undisclosed agreement. Everything remained circumstantial, yet the pattern was difficult to ignore. Mark entered companies during vulnerable periods. He sought broad access. Confidential information later escaped. The companies weakened. Competitors benefited. Mark left before the consequences became visible. CloudSync was now entering precisely the type of vulnerable period described in those cases. It was raising capital, revealing sensitive projections, and changing leadership. Its new brand director lacked experience and already treated private information carelessly. And David had promised Mark access in exchange for debt relief. Vanessa looked at the time. It was after midnight. She should have been exhausted, but adrenaline kept her alert. She returned to David's email and searched for recent messages from Mark. A message sent 4 days earlier read, "Isabella begins Monday. I expect the introduction by the end of her first week. Tell her I helped shape the strategy Marcus liked. She will feel obligated." David replied, "She already plans to bring you in. Marcus is desperate to show movement before the investor meetings." Mark answered, "Good. I need full access to growth data, customer segmentation, pricing, and the investor model. Do not let them restrict me to marketing documents." David wrote, "That may be difficult." Vanessa controlled access tightly. Mark replied, "Vanessa will not be there. That is the point." Vanessa stopped breathing. That sentence reduced the entire conspiracy to its most honest form. Vanessa will not be there. That is the point. Her dismissal was not an unfortunate consequence of David's affair. It was a requirement. She was the person who understood CloudSync well enough to recognize unusual access requests. She knew which documents could damage the company. She had spent years creating approval systems designed to stop exactly this kind of exposure. Removing her did more than create a job for Isabella. It eliminated oversight. The phrase fresh energy had concealed something far more dangerous than ageism or poor judgment. Marcus had been persuaded to remove a safeguard because the safeguard stood between Mark and the company's most valuable information. Vanessa saved every email as a PDF. She also took screenshots showing the sender-recipient date and full message thread. She forwarded copies to a private address. She avoided changing anything in David's account in case the original metadata became important later. Then she returned to the bank records. She followed the transfers connected to premium storage solutions. Several payments came from the joint checking account. Others were made from funds withdrawn through the home equity line. The destination account belonged to the limited liability company she had already identified. She searched the company registration more carefully. The organizer's name was hidden behind a filing service, but the correspondence address matched a mailbox rented by Isabella. Vanessa found a lease-related email in David's inbox. The landlord had required a guarantor because Isabella's influencer income was inconsistent. David signed the guarantee. He was legally responsible for the rent. Another document listed the apartment as a future residence for 2 occupants, although only Isabella was named. Vanessa saved it. She found receipts for a bedroom set, kitchen appliances, a large television, designer lighting, a deposit for custom curtains. David was not merely supporting Isabella until she found stability. He was furnishing a future home. Their future home. Using the equity from the house Vanessa had spent 12 years helping to pay for. The betrayal became almost unbearable in its practicality. There was nothing impulsive or romantic about it. David had compared furniture scheduled deliveries, negotiated a lease, and organized payments. Every action required time. Every transfer required a decision. He had built another life through administrative steps while continuing to eat dinner with Vanessa and ask about her day. She found an email from Isabella thanking him for the sofa. "I cannot believe this place is ours. Once everything settles, we will finally be able to stop hiding." David replied, "Be patient. The job comes first. Once you have your own income, I can deal with the divorce without carrying both households." There it was again. The job came first. Isabella's position at CloudSync was not only about access for Mark, it was part of David's exit budget. If Isabella earned a director's salary, David would no longer need to pay her rent and expenses. He could direct whatever remained toward gambling debts and legal costs. At the same time, Vanessa's unemployment would make her vulnerable and distracted during divorce negotiations. He expected her to be too destabilized to examine the accounts. He had underestimated the woman he married. Vanessa created a master folder on her laptop. She named it Documentation. Inside, she created separate subfolders: CloudSync Employment, David and Isabella, Bank Records, Home Equity, Gambling, Mark Rossi, Mia Recording, Social Media Leaks, Timeline. She placed every document in the correct section. For each file, she added the date and a short description. She preserved original copies and created working versions for notes. She recorded where each piece of evidence came from and the time she accessed it. Then she inserted a new external hard drive into the laptop. The device had been used for old work archives. Vanessa erased unnecessary files, encrypted the drive, and copied the entire documentation folder onto it. She uploaded another copy to a private cloud account protected by 2-factor authentication. A third copy went to a different provider under an email address David did not know. She printed the most important documents. The sound of the printer seemed shockingly loud in the silent house. Bank statements emerged first. Then the home equity records. Emails between David and Mark. Messages between David and Isabella. The apartment lease. The screenshots of Isabella's office videos. The transcript Vanessa created from Mia's recording. By 3 a.m, a thick stack of paper covered the kitchen table. Vanessa placed the pages into labeled folders and locked them inside the metal filing cabinet in her home office. David rarely entered that room. He described marketing documents as boring and claimed the space made him feel as though he were still at work. His lack of interest now protected the evidence. Vanessa returned to the kitchen and opened the timeline. She began 18 months earlier with the first home equity withdrawal. Then the gambling losses. Mark's payment demands. The beginning of the affair. The apartment lease. The monthly rent. David's conversations with Marcus. Isabella's interviews. The decision to restructure CloudSync. Vanessa's removal. Mark's planned introduction. The sequence was no longer a collection of separate betrayals. It was one connected system. David's gambling created debt. The debt gave Mark leverage. Mark wanted access to CloudSync. David needed an internal advocate who could bring Mark into the company. Isabella needed money and status. Marcus wanted youth visibility and investor approval. Vanessa stood in the way of all of them. She was the only person whose interests did not align with the scheme. That was why she had to be removed. Not because her work failed. Not because the brand needed reinvention. Not because Isabella possessed stronger leadership abilities. Vanessa lost her job because she was competent enough to ask questions. The truth should have destroyed her. Instead, it gave her clarity. For most of the day, she had been trying to understand why everyone chose Isabella over her. She had compared experience with popularity, measurable results with online attention, and 8 years of work with 200,000 followers. She had treated the decision as a judgment of her value. It was not. Marcus's decision revealed his insecurity. David's actions revealed his desperation. Isabella's behavior revealed her ambition and carelessness. Mark's proposal revealed his strategy. None of those things reduced Vanessa's worth. They only explained why dangerous people preferred her absent. Her phone vibrated on the table. A message from David. "We need to talk. I am staying at a hotel tonight. We should meet tomorrow and discuss this calmly." Vanessa stared at the screen. He still believed he controlled the amount of information available to her. He thought she knew about the affair and the introduction to Marcus, but nothing more. He expected to present a carefully edited explanation, admit only what could no longer be denied, and frame the marriage as mutually broken. He did not know she had seen the bank records. He did not know she had found the home equity withdrawals. He did not know she had traced Isabella's rent. He did not know she had discovered the gambling debt. He did not know she had read Mark's proposal. Most importantly, he did not know she understood why she had been removed from CloudSync. Vanessa did not reply. Another message arrived. "Please do not involve Mia. She is already upset and should not be placed between us." The hypocrisy was almost breathtaking. David had placed Mia between them months earlier when he demanded her silence. Now he wanted to invoke her well-being because it served him. Vanessa took a screenshot and added it to the folder. Then she turned off notifications. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. A thin gray line appeared beyond the kitchen windows, separating the rooftops from the night. Vanessa looked around the room. The house still contained the same furniture, photographs, and carefully chosen objects. Yet it no longer felt like a place she shared with David. It felt like the location where he hid evidence because he believed familiarity would make her careless. She closed the laptop. For the first time since the conference room announcement, she allowed herself to think beyond the immediate pain. She needed a lawyer. The joint accounts had to be protected before David moved more money. The home equity withdrawals required professional review. Mia needed reassurance and distance from the conflict. CloudSync needed to be warned eventually, although Vanessa had not decided when or how. Mark's history needed independent verification. She could not accuse him publicly based only on patterns and private emails. She would need legal advice before using any evidence found in David's account. But she no longer needed every answer before taking the first steps. She already knew enough to act. Vanessa went upstairs and paused outside Mia's room. The door was slightly open. Mia slept on her side with one hand beneath her pillow. Her face still looked puffy from crying. Vanessa stood there for several minutes. David's betrayal of their marriage was painful. His theft from their family was enraging. His role in destroying Vanessa's career was unforgivable. But what he had done to Mia was different. He had forced their daughter to carry adult guilt, convinced her that truth was dangerous, and used her love for her mother as a mechanism of silence. He had protected his affair by making a child believe honesty would destroy the family. Vanessa's decisions from that moment forward would not be driven only by anger. They would be driven by protection. She returned to the bedroom she had shared with David for 12 years. His side of the closet was full. His watchbox remained on the dresser. A half-read book sat on his nightstand. The image of normal married life had been preserved so carefully that Vanessa wondered whether David expected to return after everything and negotiate the ending on his own terms. She sat on the edge of the bed. Grief finally arrived, but it was not grief for the man he had become. It was grief for the life she had believed they possessed. She mourned the anniversary dinners that now carried hidden meanings. The vacations that might have included secret messages. The promises made while money disappeared. The years in which she defended his character because she assumed loyalty was mutual. She mourned the version of herself who believed hard work could keep both a company and a marriage safe. Then she let that version go. By dawn, exhaustion pulled at her body, but her mind remained precise. Vanessa looked at the encrypted drive on the desk, the copied files in the cloud, and the printed folders locked in her office. David had expected her to collapse. Mark had expected her absence. Marcus had expected a smooth transition. Isabella had expected a glamorous new beginning. None of them understood what Vanessa had actually done for 8 years. She had built systems. She had studied weaknesses. She had prepared for crises before they became visible. She had learned how to preserve facts when everyone around her wanted to control the story. Those skills did not belong to CloudSync. They belonged to her. Vanessa stood and walked toward the bathroom as the first morning light entered the bedroom. Only hours earlier she had believed she was investigating an affair. Now she understood that the affair was merely the surface. Beneath it lay gambling debts, stolen family assets, hidden payments, professional manipulation, and a plan to place a suspicious consultant inside CloudSync with access to its most valuable information. She had not been removed because she lacked relevance. She had been removed because her presence made the scheme harder to execute. Vanessa looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red, her face exhausted, and her hair still carried the shape of a day that had begun in a corporate conference room and ended in the ruins of her marriage. But she no longer looked confused. She finally understood her role in their plan. She had been the obstacle, and now that she knew the truth, she intended to become something far more dangerous. She would become the person who could prove it. Vanessa slept for less than 2 hours. At 5 in the morning, she opened her eyes before the alarm sounded and stared into the darkness of the bedroom. For a few seconds, she could not remember why David's side of the bed was empty. Then the previous day returned in fragments. Marcus on the stage, Isabella beneath the CloudSync logo, David's face at the back of the conference room, Mia crying on the front steps, the recording, the bank statements, the home equity, withdrawals, and Mark Rossi's emails. The memories no longer arrived as separate shocks. They had become a map. Vanessa sat up and reached for the notebook on her nightstand. She had spent most of the night gathering evidence of what had been done to her. Now she needed to decide what she would do for herself. That distinction mattered. She could not control Marcus's judgment, David's lies, Isabella's ambition, or Mark's intentions. She could not undo the public humiliation or recover the years she had invested in a company that had discarded her. But she could control what happened next. She could protect her name before others defined the story. She could secure her finances before David moved more money. She could build income that did not depend on a single employer. She could show Mia that losing everything familiar did not mean losing the ability to begin again. Vanessa carried her laptop downstairs and made coffee. The kitchen still looked like an investigation room. Printed bank records covered one end of the table. A locked metal box held the most sensitive documents. Her external hard drive sat beside the laptop. She moved the papers into neat stacks, then opened a new document and titled it, Next Steps. The first line read, Control the public narrative. The second, Protect the money. The third, Create independent income. The fourth, Shield Mia from further manipulation. The fifth, Do not act from anger. That final rule was the most important. Anger felt powerful, but it could also make her predictable. David expected accusations. Marcus expected bitterness. Isabella's followers were already searching for drama. Any emotional public response would be used to portray Vanessa as unstable, resentful, or unable to accept change. She refused to give them that version of her. Vanessa picked up her phone and called Rachel Cole. Rachel answered on the second ring. Vanessa. Her voice sounded alert despite the hour. I have been waiting for you to call. Are you all right? I am functioning. That is not the same thing. It is enough for today. Rachel was silent for a moment. CloudSync has not issued a clear statement, she said. They are calling it a leadership transition, but no one believes that. Isabella announced the position before the company told you. The screenshots are everywhere. I know. There are also rumors about your husband. Vanessa looked toward the locked box containing Mia's recording. I am not commenting on my marriage. Understood. I want to give you an on-the-record statement about CloudSync. Rachel's tone changed immediately. She was no longer speaking only as a concerned friend. She became the journalist Vanessa had worked with for years. I am ready. Vanessa took a breath. I am proud of the 8 years I spent building the CloudSync brand and grateful for the talented people I worked alongside. The company has chosen a new leadership direction, and I am now focused on the next stage of my career. I plan to work with growing companies that need experienced marketing leadership, particularly in brand strategy, growth positioning, and crisis communication. Rachel waited. Is that all? For publication, yes. It is very diplomatic. It is accurate. Rachel lowered her voice. Off the record. Vanessa considered how much to say. Off the record, I was informed of my replacement in front of 200 employees. The person taking the role had already announced it online. She has no significant corporate marketing experience, and she spent her first day posting material from inside the office that appears to include confidential information. I saw the videos, Rachel said. They are already circulating in private investor groups. That is CloudSync's problem now. Do you believe Marcus replaced you because of your age? I believe he confused visibility with competence, and novelty with innovation. Rachel exhaled softly. That is a strong quote. It is not on the record. Understood. I also do not want the affair mentioned in anything attributed to me, even if it becomes public. Especially then. Rachel paused again. Why protect them? I am not protecting them. I am protecting myself. My career is not going to become a footnote in a story about my husband's affair. Rachel's voice softened. That makes sense. The story I am willing to tell is simple. I built something valuable. The company decided it no longer needed me. I am moving forward. And what happens if CloudSync collapses under its new leadership? Then it will prove its own point without my help. Rachel gave a short laugh. I will use the statement exactly as you gave it. Thank you. Before ending the call, Rachel added, for what it is worth, the industry knows who built that brand. People are angry for you. Vanessa looked at the dark kitchen window. I appreciate that, but anger is not a business plan. After the call, she opened LinkedIn. Her profile still listed CloudSync as her current employer. The headline beneath her name read, Brand Director at CloudSync. For 8 years, that title had been a symbol of achievement. Now it looked like a chain attached to a place that had already once cited she was replaceable. Vanessa clicked the edit icon. She removed the title. Then she wrote, Fractional CMO, Brand Strategy, Growth Marketing, Crisis Communications, helping companies turn complex products into trusted brands. She reread it several times. The phrase, fractional CMO, represented a path she had considered before but never seriously pursued. Growing companies often needed executive-level marketing leadership without the cost or commitment of a full-time chief marketing officer. Vanessa had spent years doing exactly that work at CloudSync. She had built strategy, managed teams, guided executives, supported fundraising, protected reputation, and connected marketing directly to revenue. She did not need another company to grant her permission to use those skills. She revised the experience section carefully. Instead of describing responsibilities, she focused on results. Built CloudSync's brand from the ground up during expansion from 10 to 200 employees. Created campaigns that supported enterprise client acquisition and contributed to significant revenue growth. Secured coverage in national business and technology publications. Developed investor messaging used across multiple funding rounds. Led crisis communications during product outages, customer disputes, and market challenges. Built and mentored a multidisciplinary marketing team. Created scalable brand media and approval systems. Vanessa added campaign metrics, client growth figures, press results, and selected awards. None of the numbers belonged only to CloudSync. They represented work she had performed, decisions she had made, and outcomes she had produced. She uploaded a new banner image with a simple statement. Experience creates clarity. Strategy creates growth. Then she drafted a post. Her first version was too defensive. After 8 years of loyalty, I was unexpectedly removed from a company I helped build. She deleted it. Her second version sounded too polished. I am thrilled to announce an exciting transition. She deleted that as well. She was not thrilled, and she would not pretend betrayal was a gift. Finally, she wrote, after 8 years of building the CloudSync brand from its earliest stage, I am beginning a new professional chapter. I am now available for select fractional CMO and strategic marketing engagements with companies that need experienced leadership in brand development, growth strategy, executive positioning, and crisis communications. I am proud of what I built, grateful for the people who contributed to that work, and ready to help new organizations achieve measurable results. She read the post one last time. It contained no accusation. No self-pity. No false gratitude toward Marcus. It acknowledged the past without allowing the past to define the future. Vanessa clicked publish. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. Then the notifications began. Hannah commented first. Any company would be lucky to have your leadership. You taught me more than anyone else in my career. Luke followed. Vanessa built the team, the standards, and the strategy that made CloudSync's marketing successful. I am grateful to have learned from her. A former client wrote, "You changed the way our company understood positioning. Let us talk." Then came messages from recruiters, founders, public relations, executives, venture capital partners, former colleagues, and people Vanessa had met only briefly at conferences. One startup CEO asked whether she could review their product launch strategy. A healthcare software company needed help rebuilding its brand before a funding round. A cybersecurity founder wanted a temporary marketing executive while searching for a permanent hire. A former CloudSync customer asked whether she would consider leading a crisis preparedness workshop. Within an hour, Vanessa had more than 30 private messages. Not all of them would lead to paid work. Some were expressions of support. Others were curiosity disguised as networking. But several were real opportunities. She created a spreadsheet. Company, contact, need, budget, timeline, next action. The familiar structure steadied her. At CloudSync, she had spent years evaluating opportunities for someone else. Now she was building a pipeline that belonged entirely to her. By 7 a.m, she had scheduled 4 exploratory calls for the following week. One founder asked for her hourly rate. Vanessa almost typed a number based on her old salary. Then she stopped. An employee salary compensated time. Consulting fees compensated expertise, speed, risk, and the ability to solve expensive problems without months of training. She researched fractional CMO rates in the region and realized she had undervalued herself before even beginning. Vanessa wrote, "My advisory rate begins at $450 per hour with monthly engagement structures available depending on scope." Her finger hovered over the keyboard. The number felt audacious. Then she remembered the millions of dollars in brand value she had helped create, the investor relationships she had supported, the crises she had prevented, and the revenue her campaigns had influenced. She sent it. The founder replied 3 minutes later. "That is within range. Let us discuss scope." Vanessa stared at the response. CloudSync had spent the previous month treating her experience as a burden. Outside its walls, that same experience had a market price. Mia came downstairs just after 7:30. She had showered, dressed for school, and pulled her hair into a loose ponytail. Her eyes were still swollen, but she looked more composed than the day before. She stopped when she saw the laptop, spreadsheets, and coffee. "Did you sleep?" "A little." "That means no. It means enough." Mia sat across from her. "What are you doing?" "Starting a business." The answer made Mia blink. Today seems as good as any." Vanessa turned the laptop so Mia could see the LinkedIn post and the growing list of messages. Mia read silently. "People already want to hire you. Some of them want to talk. That is different from hiring. But they know you are good." Vanessa looked at her daughter. "Yes, they do." Mia's mouth tightened. "Dad made it sound like losing CloudSync would destroy you." The comment revealed more than Mia probably intended. "What else did he say?" "He said your whole identity was your job. He said if the company moved on without you, you would not know who you were anymore." Vanessa let the words settle. David had not merely expected her to be distracted by unemployment. He had built his plan around the assumption that she would collapse without the title. "He was wrong," Vanessa said. Mia nodded. "I know." Vanessa reached across the table and touched her hand. "I need you to understand something. What happened yesterday was terrible. I am angry and I am hurt. But losing a job does not erase the person who performed it. CloudSync can remove my name from a door. It cannot remove what I know." Mia glanced at the messages again. "Are you going to make more money?" "Possibly." A small smile appeared on Mia's face. "That would be funny. It would be useful." "What about Dad?" "I am meeting a lawyer today." The smile disappeared. "Are you definitely divorcing him?" "Yes," Vanessa answered without hesitation. Mia lowered her gaze. "I knew you would. Does that frighten you?" "A little. That is honest. But staying with him would frighten me more." Vanessa squeezed her hand. "We are not going to make every decision today. We will handle one thing at a time. Will we lose the house? I do not know yet. What about college? I am going to protect whatever can be protected." Mia looked ashamed. "I should not be worried about money right now." "You are allowed to worry. Your father's choices affected you too." Mia nodded slowly. "Are you angry at me at all?" "No. Not even a little. Not even a little." The certainty in Vanessa's voice finally reached her. Mia's shoulders loosened and some of the tension left her face. Before leaving for school, she stopped at the kitchen door. Mom. Yes. I am proud of you. Vanessa waited until the front door closed before allowing herself to cry. The tears lasted less than a minute. Then she wiped her face, reopened the laptop, and continued working. At 8:30, Vanessa drove downtown to meet Juliana Pierce. Juliana worked as Chief Marketing Officer at TechVision, one of CloudSync's strongest competitors. They had met 6 years earlier during a conference panel and developed a friendship built on mutual respect, occasional disagreement, and an understanding that professional competition did not require personal hostility. Juliana's office occupied the 17th floor of a glass building overlooking the financial district. She was waiting in a small conference room with coffee pastries and a printed copy of Vanessa's LinkedIn post. The moment Vanessa entered, Juliana stood and hugged her. "I am furious," she said. "I have noticed that many people are. This was not a leadership transition. It was sabotage." Vanessa set her laptop bag on the table. "It was more organized than sabotage." Juliana studied her face. "What did you find?" For the next 40 minutes, Vanessa explained the affair Mia's recording, the missing money, David's gambling debt, the payments to Isabella, and Mark Rossi's attempt to gain access to CloudSync. Juliana listened without interrupting. Her expression shifted from anger to disbelief, then to something closer to alarm. When Vanessa finished, Juliana sat back. "That is not a workplace scandal. That is a criminal conspiracy." "It may be. I am not making that claim until an attorney reviews the evidence." "You have emails. I found them in David's account. I need to know how they can legally be used." "Does CloudSync know about Mark?" "I do not think so. Marcus probably believes he is a normal growth consultant." "And Isabella? She appears to know David helped her get the job." "I am not convinced she understands the full arrangement." Juliana shook her head. "She posted financial projections to 200,000 followers. Whether she understands the scheme or not, she is dangerous." "I know. Are you going to warn Marcus?" Vanessa looked through the glass wall at employees moving through the office. "I have not decided. Part of you wants to let CloudSync collapse." "Yes. I do not blame you. But there are people there who had no role in this. If the company fails, Marcus will not be the only one paying." Juliana nodded. "That is the problem with revenge. It rarely lands only on the person who deserves it." "I am not interested in revenge." "Are you sure?" Vanessa considered the question honestly. "Yesterday I was. Today I want options." "That is better." Juliana pushed the pastries toward her. "You have not eaten." "I am not hungry." "You need energy if you are going to rebuild your entire life before lunch." Vanessa managed a brief smile and took a piece of bread. Juliana opened her own laptop. "Let us discuss the rebuild." She pulled up profiles for 3 companies. The first was a healthcare software startup preparing for a Series B funding round. Its product was strong, but the brand was inconsistent, and the leadership team struggled to explain its value to investors. The second developed cybersecurity tools for mid-sized businesses. It had recently experienced a public customer complaint and needed both crisis guidance and a more mature market position. The third was an education technology company expanding internationally. It needed a senior marketing leader to build strategy and mentor its young internal team, but it could not justify hiring a full-time CMO. "All 3 need someone like you," Juliana said. "How many hours?" 15 to 20 per month for the healthcare company. Around 25 for cybersecurity during the first quarter. The education company probably needs 10 to 15. That is not 60 hours a week. "No. And the combined compensation." Juliana turned the screen toward her. "If you price correctly, more than you earned at CloudSync." Vanessa stared at the projected figures. Her salary at CloudSync had been $180,000 a year plus bonus and equity. The 3 consulting engagements could generate more than $250,000 annually without requiring a full-time schedule. "That seems high." "It seems high because companies trained you to think your salary represented your value." Juliana leaned forward. "It did not. It represented the lowest amount CloudSync believed it could pay to retain you." Vanessa looked again at the numbers. "As a consultant, you are not being paid only for hours," Juliana continued. "You are being paid because you can recognize in a week what an inexperienced team may take 6 months to understand. You reduce mistakes. You create focus. You protect funding. That has value. What is the risk? Inconsistent contracts. You have to manage taxes, insurance, legal agreements, and your own pipeline. Some clients will expect unlimited access unless you define boundaries. Others will hire you for strategy and then ignore the advice. So normal executive work without pretending they own my time. Exactly. Vanessa smiled for the first time that morning. Juliana sent introductory emails while they sat together. All three founders responded within an hour. Each wanted to meet Vanessa the following week. What did you tell them? Vanessa asked. The truth. That you built one of the strongest brands in the sector, that you understand fundraising and crisis management, and that CloudSync just made the most expensive hiring mistake of its existence. You did not mention the affair. No. Your professional value does not need a scandal to make it interesting. The statement warmed something inside Vanessa. For the previous 24 hours, every part of her life had become connected to betrayal. Juliana was reminding her that a separate identity still existed. One built through competence. Before Vanessa left, Juliana wrote a name on a piece of paper. Amanda Perry. Divorce attorney. She represented me 5 years ago. I did not know you were divorced. Most people did not. I kept it private. Is she good? She is calm, thorough, and frightening when necessary. That sounds useful. Tell her I sent you. Vanessa called from the parking garage. Amanda's assistant arranged an appointment for that afternoon after hearing that joint assets might be at risk. The law office was located in a quiet building several blocks from the courthouse. There were no dramatic advertisements or slogans promising aggressive representation. The reception area was understated with gray furniture, framed legal certificates, and a shelf of books about financial fraud. Amanda Perry entered precisely at 1. She was in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a low knot and the focused expression of someone who listened for inconsistencies. After introductions, Vanessa placed the printed folders on the desk. I am not here because my husband had an affair, she said. I am here because he used joint money to support the other woman, withdrew $92,000 from our home equity line, accumulated gambling debts, manipulated our daughter, and appears to have participated in a plan involving my former employer. Amanda opened the first folder. Start at the beginning. Vanessa walked her through everything. She described the CloudSync meeting, David's introduction of Isabella Mia's recording, the bank transactions, the home equity withdrawals, the gambling losses, and the emails with Mark Rossi. Amanda asked precise questions. Whose name was on the home equity account? Did David have authority to withdraw funds alone? How had Vanessa accessed the email? Were the gambling debts documented formally? Was Mia willing to confirm the recording's authenticity? Had David attempted to move retirement funds? Did Vanessa have personal savings in an account he could not reach? Had any divorce papers already been filed? By the end of the explanation, Amanda had filled several pages with notes. This is one of the more complicated financial misconduct cases I have seen, she said. Can the money be recovered? Some of it, possibly. That depends on where it went, whether the transfers can be traced, and whether the court classifies the spending as dissipation of marital assets. What does that mean? It means one spouse used shared property for purposes unrelated to the marriage, especially during its breakdown. Paying a girlfriend's rent, purchasing furniture for her apartment, and financing an affair may qualify. And the gambling. Courts treat gambling losses differently depending on timing, secrecy, and scale. The fact that he hid the activity and borrowed against the home strengthens your position. Could I become responsible for his debt? Not automatically, but we need to identify whether he signed anything, jointly used marital assets as security, or created obligations in both names. Vanessa's stomach tightened. What do we do first? We file. Amanda pulled a legal pad closer. We also request temporary financial restraints. That can limit both parties from transferring major assets, creating new debt, changing beneficiaries, or emptying accounts without notice. Can the joint account be frozen? We can protect it, but you still need access for ordinary expenses. We will move carefully. You should transfer your salary and future consulting income into a new personal business account immediately. I already have personal savings. Good. Do not hide money, but do not leave new income in an account he controls. What about the house? We preserve the property until the financial records are reviewed. And Mia. At 17, her preferences matter. We will avoid pulling her into the case unless necessary. The recording may be important, but we should protect her from becoming the center of the dispute. Vanessa nodded. That is my priority. Amanda studied her for a moment. You are unusually organized. It is how I manage crises. That will help. Many people arrive here with anger and fragments. You arrived with a timeline, transaction records, and preserved communications. I spent 8 years preparing executives for situations they failed to anticipate. Amanda gave the smallest smile. Now use that skill for yourself. Vanessa signed the retainer agreement. Amanda's office prepared the initial divorce filing and requests for temporary financial protection. Vanessa opened a separate business checking account before leaving the building. She redirected all future consulting payments there and changed the passwords on her personal financial accounts. She also updated beneficiary information where legally permitted and scheduled a meeting with a forensic accountant. Each action felt less like the destruction of a marriage and more like the restoration of boundaries that should never have been crossed. When Vanessa stepped outside, the afternoon sunlight reflected off the courthouse windows. She expected to feel grief after signing papers that would end 19 years of marriage. Instead, she felt relief. Not because the marriage had meant nothing, because she was no longer waiting for David to decide when the truth would become official. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from him. The first voicemail sounded concerned. "Vanessa, we need to speak calmly." The second sounded frustrated. "I do not know why you are refusing to communicate." The third carried a sharper edge. "You cannot make financial decisions without discussing them with me." Vanessa saved the messages and forwarded them to Amanda. She did not call him back. At 4 that afternoon, an unexpected number appeared on her phone. Vanessa Hayes. "Yes. This is Lydia Saunders." Vanessa recognized the name immediately. Lydia had managed her at TechCorp more than a decade earlier before Vanessa joined CloudSync. She had been demanding, brilliant, and one of the few executives who gave direct feedback without humiliating people. "Of course I remember you. I saw your LinkedIn post. That happened quickly. You are currently the most discussed marketing executive in my network." Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. "I was hoping to avoid becoming a topic. You are not a topic because of the scandal. You are a topic because everyone knows CloudSync's brand was your work." Lydia suggested meeting at a coffee shop in Palo Alto. They arranged to meet the following morning. Vanessa arrived early and chose a table near the window. She brought her laptop, but for once she did not open it. She watched commuters move along the sidewalk and tried to imagine a life in which she no longer entered the same office every morning. Lydia arrived at exactly 9. She wore a charcoal suit, carried a leather portfolio, and moved with the same purposeful confidence Vanessa remembered. Her hair was now entirely silver. After a brief hug, Lydia sat across from her. "You look exhausted," she said. "That is accurate. But you also look focused. That is useful." Lydia smiled. "I always liked that about you." She opened her portfolio and removed a tablet. "I want to show you something." The screen displayed a private professional network called The Collective. Vanessa scrolled through the profiles. There were chief technology officers, marketing leaders, operations executives, finance directors, product strategists, and human resources specialists. Most were women over 40. Each profile listed decades of experience, selected achievements, consulting specialties, and current availability. "What is this?" Vanessa asked. "A referral network. For consultants. For senior women who became inconvenient to companies they helped build." Vanessa looked up. Lydia's expression had lost its humor. 3 years ago, I began noticing the same pattern everywhere. A woman joins an early-stage company, creates systems, builds teams, survives the difficult years, and helps the business become stable. Then when the company reaches a certain size, leadership decides she no longer represents the future. They replace her with someone younger. Sometimes younger. Sometimes simply cheaper or easier to control. But the language is usually the same. Fresh perspective. Cultural alignment. New energy. Different stage of growth. Vanessa heard Marcus's voice in every phrase. Lydia continued. "The industry treats experience as essential during crisis and unfashionable during expansion. We created The Collective so people like us no longer have to wait for another company to decide whether we are still relevant." "How does it work?" "Clients come to the network looking for fractional executives. We match them with members based on need. Everyone sets her own rates and contracts directly. We do not take commission." "Then why maintain the network?" "Because isolation keeps talented people weak. Referrals make us stronger." Lydia opened several client requests. One startup needed a temporary operations leader. Another wanted a product executive for a 6-month transformation. Several required senior marketing support. "We share opportunities," she said. "We review contracts. We warn each other about bad clients. When one person has too much work, she refers it to someone else." "What is the requirement to join?" "Competence, professionalism, and reciprocity. If the network helps you, you help the network when you can." Vanessa leaned back. Why was I not aware this existed? Because you still had a title. The answer was blunt but not cruel. Many people do not search for alternative structures until the traditional structure rejects them. Lydia turned off the screen. What happened to you is not rare, Vanessa. It only feels personal because the people involved made it personal. My husband arranged it. I know enough to understand that. How? Technology circles are smaller than they appear. People talk. Vanessa looked toward the window. I do not want my career rebuilt on sympathy. Good. Sympathy fades quickly. Lydia leaned forward. We are not inviting you because you were mistreated. We are inviting you because you are qualified. The words landed more deeply than Vanessa expected. For 2 days, everyone had focused on what was done to her. Lydia was focused on what Vanessa could do next. The 3 companies Juliana mentioned, Vanessa said. Are they connected to this network? Yes. You arranged those opportunities. I approved the referrals. Juliana made the introductions. Why? Because all 3 companies asked for someone who had already built a serious marketing function. They tried hiring younger leaders with strong digital profiles. They received content but no strategy. Vanessa almost laughed at the timing. What happened? One company spent 6 months generating attention without improving conversion. Another created an online controversy because no one understood crisis protocols. The third could not explain its product to investors. And now experience is fashionable again. Experience becomes fashionable whenever inexperience becomes expensive. Lydia's observation held no triumph, only certainty. Vanessa looked through the profiles again. Some of the women had once held senior positions at famous companies. Others had quietly built departments no one outside their industries recognized. All appeared to have faced some version of the same dismissal: too senior, too expensive, too traditional, too direct, or no longer the right cultural fit. The collective transformed those labels into assets. Senior meant capable of seeing patterns quickly. Expensive meant costly mistakes could be avoided. Traditional meant experienced enough to know which fundamentals should not be discarded. Direct meant unwilling to protect executives from uncomfortable facts. This is larger than consulting, Vanessa said. It is independence. Lydia nodded. The goal is not to recreate corporate employment with multiple clients. The goal is to ensure no single person can erase your livelihood during one meeting. That was exactly what Vanessa needed. Not another title. Not another corner office. Not a new company that promised loyalty until loyalty became inconvenient. She needed control over where her income came from, how her time was used, and which leaders deserved access to her expertise. What happens next? You meet the 3 companies. If the fit is good, you negotiate. I will review your proposals before you send them. I do not need permission to join. Lydia smiled. You are already in. Before leaving, Lydia offered one final piece of advice. Do not build this business as a reaction to CloudSync. What do you mean? If every decision is designed to prove Marcus wrong, he still controls you. Build something that would be valuable even if CloudSync disappeared tomorrow. Vanessa thought about the evidence folder on her laptop, the social media disaster unfolding at her former company, and the temptation to watch every mistake Isabella made. How do I stop caring? You do not stop immediately. You create something more important to care about. That afternoon, Vanessa began preparing for the 3 consulting meetings. She studied each company's products, market position, leadership team competitors, customer reviews, and public messaging. The work absorbed her in a way that felt clean. These problems had no connection to David, Isabella, or Marcus. They were simply business challenges waiting to be understood. For the healthcare company, Vanessa identified that its messaging focused too heavily on technical integration and failed to explain the impact on patient care. For the cybersecurity startup, she found inconsistent responses to the customer complaint and drafted a preliminary trust rebuilding framework. For the education technology company, she saw that every regional market used different language, making the brand feel fragmented. By the time the meetings began, Vanessa had already created concise recommendations. The healthcare founder joined the video call 5 minutes early. I want to be transparent, he said after introductions. We spoke to 2 other consultants. Both wanted to begin with a 3-month discovery process. What do you need to discover? Vanessa asked. Our problem. Your problem is that your product is described as a technical system when your actual value is operational confidence. Hospital administrators do not buy integration. They buy fewer disruptions, faster staff adoption, and lower implementation risk. The founders stared at her. You got that from the website. The website customer reviews 2 interviews you gave last year and your investor deck. He smiled. That is exactly what our sales team has been struggling to explain. Vanessa proposed a 4-month engagement focused on positioning investor, messaging, customer segmentation, and campaign strategy. He accepted the scope pending contract review. The cybersecurity meeting produced a similar result. The leadership team expected Vanessa to discuss social media content. Instead, she mapped the trust problem, identified gaps between legal language and customer communication, and recommended a reputation recovery sequence. The CEO asked, "How soon can you start?" The education technology company wanted Vanessa to mentor its internal marketing director in addition to creating international strategy. That arrangement appealed to her. She had always enjoyed developing talented people, even if CloudSync's final betrayal had temporarily made leadership feel thankless. Within 1 week, Vanessa received 3 formal offers. She negotiated carefully. Each agreement defined the scope, number of hours, decision-making authority, response times, and additional fees for emergency work. She refused unlimited access. She required upfront monthly retainers. She added clauses allowing termination if executives ignored compliance or confidentiality requirements. Lydia reviewed the contracts. "You learned quickly," she said. "I learned expensively." The combined value exceeded Vanessa's previous annual salary. More importantly, the work required fewer hours than her role at CloudSync. She would no longer spend 60-hour weeks in one building waiting for Marcus to decide whether her contribution remained fashionable. She would advise several companies maintain professional distance and walk away from clients who ignored her expertise. Vanessa signed the first contract at the kitchen table. Mia sat nearby completing homework. "Is that the healthcare company?" she asked. "Yes." "How much are they paying you?" "That is confidential." "So more than CloudSync." Vanessa looked over the laptop. "Possibly." Mia smiled. "Definitely more." Vanessa signed the second agreement. Then the third. 3 companies. 3 separate sources of income. 3 leadership teams that had chosen her because of her experience rather than in spite of it. She closed the laptop. For the first time in days, the silence in the house did not feel empty. It felt peaceful. Over the following weeks, Vanessa established a routine. She worked from home in the mornings and held client meetings in the afternoons. She blocked evenings whenever possible so she and Mia could eat together. They began cooking simple meals, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. They watched old movies, discussed college applications, and slowly rebuilt the ordinary connection David's secrets had damaged. Vanessa also discovered how much of her life CloudSync had consumed. She no longer received midnight messages about minor revisions. She did not spend Sundays preparing Marcus for Monday meetings. She could finish a client call and close the laptop without feeling responsible for every decision the company made afterward. Her expertise became clearer when separated from constant emergency. At the healthcare startup, she rewrote the central message and helped the founders present a coherent investor narrative. At the cybersecurity company, she established a crisis response system that reduced approval delays and improved customer trust. At the education technology firm, she guided the internal marketing director through the company's first international campaign without taking over the team. The work produced visible results. The healthcare company secured new investor meetings. The cybersecurity startup retained 2 major clients that had been considering cancellation. The education company improved lead quality in its first expansion market. Each success strengthened Vanessa's confidence. She was not surviving because people felt sorry for her. She was succeeding because she knew what she was doing. Her LinkedIn presence grew without effort. Clients mentioned her work. Founders referred her to other leaders. Members of the collective invited her to private discussions about pricing, difficult negotiations, and business development. Vanessa referred a product strategy project to another member when it fell outside her expertise. In return, that woman introduced her to a founder seeking crisis communication support. The network operated differently from CloudSync. No one pretended collaboration was family. No one demanded loyalty while withholding security. The relationships were professional, transparent, and mutually beneficial. That honesty felt more supportive than years of corporate promises. One evening, Vanessa received an email from a recruiter offering her a full-time chief marketing officer role at a well-funded startup. The salary exceeded her old compensation. The title was prestigious. The company had impressive investors. 6 months earlier, she would have considered it the natural next step. She declined. Not because she feared employment, but because she no longer wanted one organization to possess that much control over her future. Her consulting business gave her variety, autonomy, and financial stability. It allowed her to choose clients, preserve boundaries, and spend more time with Mia. She had built a structure that could survive the loss of any single contract. David had believed removing CloudSync would remove Vanessa's identity. Instead, it removed the walls around her abilities. She had mistaken one job for the full measure of her career because she had poured so much of herself into it. Once she stepped outside, she discovered that the market valued the very qualities Marcus had dismissed: experience, judgment, disciplina, consistency, the ability to see consequences before they became crises. One Friday afternoon, Vanessa completed a strategy session and closed her laptop. The house was quiet. Mia would not return from school for another hour. Vanessa opened her LinkedIn profile and looked at the headline she had written on the morning after her dismissal: Fractional CMO, Brand Strategy, Growth Marketing, Crisis Communications. Beneath it were messages from satisfied clients, new inquiries, and recommendations from people across the industry. CloudSync no longer appeared as her present identity. It appeared as one chapter under professional experience. 8 years reduced to a section on a page. The thought did not make those years meaningless. Vanessa remained proud of what she had built. She could acknowledge that pride without surrendering ownership of her future to the company. Marcus had taken away her office. He had removed her title. He had replaced her in front of 200 employees. But he could not take the judgment developed across hundreds of difficult decisions. He could not erase the trust she had earned from journalists, clients, founders, and colleagues. He could not remove the relationships formed through years of consistent work. He could not prevent her from creating results somewhere else. Most importantly, he could no longer decide whether she was valuable. Vanessa had stopped waiting for a company, a boss, or a husband to confirm that truth. She already knew it. CloudSync had given Isabella the title. Vanessa had taken back everything that mattered more. 3 weeks after Vanessa signed her first consulting contracts, CloudSync began to collapse in public. At first, the damage appeared manageable. A few technology bloggers reposted screenshots from Isabella's office tour and questioned why confidential product information had been visible behind her. Several marketing professionals criticized the company's social media standards. One investor commented privately that the videos showed a disturbing lack of executive discipline. Marcus ordered Isabella to remove the posts. She deleted them immediately and published a vague apology about being too excited to share the energy of her new workplace. By then, the videos had already been copied. Screen recordings appeared on industry forums. Enlarged images of CloudSync's product roadmap circulated among competitors. Analysts studied the visible financial projections and began speculating about the company's cash position. A technology news account posted a thread comparing the internal release timeline with CloudSync's public promises. The story might still have faded if the exposed material had contained only embarrassing business information. It contained more. One frame from Isabella's office tour showed a development whiteboard listing several security vulnerabilities scheduled to be repaired in an upcoming software update. The technical language would have meant nothing to most of her followers. To someone who understood CloudSync's platform, it was a guide. Within 48 hours, unauthorized activity appeared across several customer accounts. The security team initially believed it was a routine intrusion attempt. Then they discovered the attacker had targeted the exact weaknesses visible in Isabella's video. The breach expanded before the company could contain it. No passwords or payment details were stolen, but internal project information connected to approximately 3,000 customers was accessed. Activity logs, team names, unfinished project descriptions, and private operational data became exposed. For CloudSync's clients, the distinction mattered very little. They had trusted the company to protect their information. CloudSync had failed because its new brand director had treated a confidential workspace like the background of a lifestyle video. The first major customer canceled its contract on Monday. 2 more followed on Tuesday. By Wednesday, the company's lead Series C investor had suspended all funding discussions until an independent security review could be completed. Other investors quickly stepped back as well. The valuation Marcus had expected to announce that quarter was suddenly irrelevant. The company was now fighting to prove it could survive. Rachel Cole published an article titled, "When Visibility Replaces Competence, the Leadership Mistake Threatening CloudSync." She did not mention Vanessa's marriage or accuse Isabella of intentional wrongdoing. She focused on the risks of placing public attention above professional judgment. The article described the difference between building an audience and managing a corporate brand, especially in an industry where confidentiality and customer trust were essential. Vanessa's statement appeared near the end. She expressed pride in the work she had done and said she was focused on helping new companies through fractional leadership. The contrast was impossible to miss. Isabella responded emotionally online. In a series of temporary posts, she accused older marketing leaders of fearing change. She suggested that traditional executives wanted her to fail because she represented a new generation. She said mistakes happened whenever people challenged outdated systems. Those posts created another wave of criticism. One commenter asked whether protecting customer information was an outdated system. Another shared a screenshot of the financial model visible behind her. A former CloudSync employee wrote that Vanessa had created strict social media approval procedures years earlier, but those controls had been loosened after her departure. Marcus ordered Isabella to stop posting. She ignored him for several hours, then uploaded a video defending herself. By the end of the day, the board demanded her removal. Isabella's employment at CloudSync lasted less than a month. Her termination did not stop the crisis. The company still had frightened customers, angry investors, hostile reporters, and a security investigation that was becoming more serious each day. Tyler Rhodes from the public relations agency called Vanessa on a Thursday afternoon. She had just completed a strategy workshop with the cybersecurity startup and was reviewing campaign materials when his name appeared on the screen. She considered letting the call go unanswered. Then she picked up. "Vanessa, thank God." Tyler sounded exhausted. "What happened?" "You know what happened. I know what has been reported publicly. It is worse internally." Vanessa closed the document on her laptop. "How much worse?" 3 enterprise clients have canceled. 4 others are threatening to leave. The investors froze the funding process. Every journalist wants an interview, and Marcus keeps changing the approved statement. "That sounds like a leadership problem." "It is." "Then why are you calling me?" There was a pause. "Because no one understands the company's communications structure the way you do. You have a public relations agency. We do not have authority over customer messaging, investor messaging, product language, executive preparation, and internal communications. You handled all of that. Until CloudSync decided it needed fresh energy." Tyler did not respond to the remark. "Marcus wants to bring you back." Vanessa looked through the window of her home office. Mia was outside on the small patio reading material for a college application essay. The afternoon was quiet. "I am not returning as an employee." "I know. I am not taking my old title." "He understands." "I will not report to Isabella. She is gone." That news produced no satisfaction. Vanessa had expected it. What exactly does Marcus want? Immediate crisis leadership. 2 weeks, perhaps longer. He wants you to stabilize the media response, retain key clients, prepare him for interviews, and coordinate messaging with the security team. Why does he believe I am available? He does not. He is asking. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. CloudSync's crisis was not her responsibility. Marcus had chosen to remove her without warning. He had humiliated her publicly, ignored her experience, and demanded she train the person taking her place. She could refuse. Part of her wanted to. But she thought about Hannah, Luke, Priscilla, and dozens of other employees whose livelihoods depended on the company surviving. Some had known about the replacement and remained silent, but most had not created the decision. They would suffer if CloudSync failed completely. Helping them did not require forgiving Marcus. It required terms. "I will consider a short engagement," Vanessa said. Tyler exhaled in relief. "My rate is $500 an hour." Silence. 500. Yes. That is significantly above. CloudSync is not paying for routine marketing support. It is paying for immediate access to 8 years of institutional knowledge during a crisis created after that knowledge was dismissed. Tyler recovered quickly. "What minimum commitment?" 20 hours paid in advance. "Anything else?" "The engagement lasts no longer than 2 weeks unless I approve an extension. I am an external consultant, not an interim employee. I do not return to my former office. I do not manage the department permanently. I do not accept responsibility for decisions made before my contract begins." Understood. "I require direct access to the security lead, customer success director, legal counsel, and your agency." Marcus does not change public language after approval without consulting the team. That may be difficult. Then he can hire someone else. Tyler was quiet. "I will speak with him." "No. Have Marcus email me directly. The agreement begins only after the payment reaches my business account. Vanessa, the crisis is active now. So is my consulting business. She ended the call. 10 minutes later, Hannah sent a message. I know they have contacted you. I do not expect you to save Marcus, but people here are terrified. Please help if you can. Luke wrote shortly afterward. We deserve the consequences of staying silent, but many junior employees had nothing to do with this. The company may not survive without crisis leadership. Vanessa did not respond immediately. She opened the client calendar on her laptop. Her new work came first. That principle mattered. If she abandoned her new clients the moment CloudSync called, she would be rebuilding the same dependency she had worked to escape. She moved several non-urgent tasks without disrupting any deadlines. Then she drafted a formal consulting agreement containing every condition she had described to Tyler. At 6 p.m, Marcus emailed. Vanessa, I accept your terms. CloudSync needs your expertise. I understand that this is a consulting arrangement and that you have no obligation beyond the defined scope. Please let me know when you can begin. There was no apology. Vanessa preferred that. An apology included in a request for rescue would have felt transactional. She replied, I will begin Monday at 10. Wire confirmation must be received before then. Have the relevant department heads available. I will address the communication crisis only. Security investigation and legal liability remain outside my scope. The payment arrived the following morning. $10,000, 20 hours at $500 per hour. Upfront. When Mia learned about the agreement, she stared at Vanessa across the kitchen table. You are helping them. I am consulting for them. That sounds like helping. It is. The difference is that they no longer decide what my help is worth. After what they did to you, I am not doing it for Marcus. For the employees. For them, partly. Also, because refusing work only to prove I am angry would still allow the people who hurt me to control my decisions. Mia considered that. So this is not forgiveness. No. Is it revenge? No. What is it? Vanessa looked at the wire confirmation. Business. On Monday morning, she dressed in a dark blue suit and drove to CloudSync. The route was painfully familiar. She had traveled it thousands of times, often before sunrise and after dark. For 8 years, arriving at the building had meant entering the center of her professional life. Now it felt like visiting a former home after the furniture had been rearranged by strangers. The lobby was quieter than usual. Katie sat behind the reception desk, speaking softly into a headset. When she saw Vanessa, her eyes filled with tears. You came back. For 2 weeks. Still. Vanessa offered a small smile. I am here to work. The security badge reader flashed green when she passed it. No one had deactivated her credentials. The oversight would have been funny under different circumstances. After a highly public security failure, the company had still not removed the system access of a terminated executive. Vanessa made a mental note to tell the security director. She did not walk toward her old office. Instead, she entered Conference Room B, a neutral space on the second floor. Marcus was already there. He looked older than he had a month earlier. His face was pale, his tie was loose, and dark shadows rested beneath his eyes. Tyler sat beside him with several folders. Across the table were the new security director, the head of customer success, CloudSync's general counsel, and 2 communications managers. Everyone stood when Vanessa entered. She placed her laptop on the table. Please sit. Marcus remained standing for another second. Vanessa, thank you for coming. She looked directly at him. You paid for a consultation. Let us use the time. He sat. Vanessa opened a blank document. Start with confirmed facts, not assumptions, not internal rumors. What was exposed, who accessed it, and what has been communicated. The security director answered first. The initial video exposed sections of the Q4 product roadmap, including vulnerabilities scheduled for repair. Attackers exploited 2 of those vulnerabilities. Approximately 3,000 client accounts were affected. What information was accessed? Project metadata, internal team labels, user activity records, and some confidential project descriptions. Financial information? No. Passwords? No. Are you certain? As certain as we can be before the forensic review is complete. Then the public statement must say exactly that. No broader claims. Vanessa turned to customer success. How many clients have been contacted directly? All enterprise accounts received an email. Who wrote it? Legal and security. That explains the tone. The director looked uncomfortable. What is wrong with it? It reads like a document designed to reduce liability rather than communicate with frightened customers. General Counsel crossed her arms. Reducing liability is necessary. So is preserving the business that will pay the legal bills. The room went silent. Vanessa continued. We need 2 documents. One contains legal facts. The other contains customer language. They must be consistent, but they do not need to sound identical. She asked the customer team to identify accounts at highest risk of cancellation. She divided them into categories based on revenue exposure level, contract timing, and relationship history. Then she reviewed the current media statement. Marcus had rewritten it 4 times. Each version attempted to minimize the role of the videos and emphasize that the attack was sophisticated. Vanessa deleted half of it. You cannot describe this as an unforeseeable external event when the vulnerabilities were publicly visible in content posted by your own executive. Marcus looked away. The board does not want us to admit negligence. You do not need to use that word. But if you avoid responsibility entirely, reporters will supply a worse one. She drafted new language. CloudSync acknowledged that internal information appeared in unauthorized social media content. The company confirmed the subsequent breach, explained the categories of affected data, and outlined immediate security measures. The statement did not exaggerate certainty. It did not blame a former employee publicly. It focused on customer protection and accountability. Next, Vanessa prepared Marcus for interviews. He resisted the first question. Why did CloudSync place an inexperienced influencer in charge of the brand? That is inflammatory, he said. It is also the question every journalist will ask. I cannot criticize Isabella. There may be legal exposure. Then do not criticize her. Explain your decision. Marcus attempted an answer about changing audiences and leadership evolution. Vanessa stopped him. That language caused the problem. What should I say? The truth that can be said responsibly. He looked at her. She continued. Say the company overestimated the relevance of audience size to executive readiness. Say leadership failed to maintain appropriate review systems during a transition. Say you accept responsibility for correcting those failures. Marcus rubbed his forehead. That will make me look incompetent. The existing facts already do that. Accountability may make you look capable of learning. Tyler hid a reaction behind his hand. For 6 hours, Vanessa moved from one problem to the next. She revised the customer communication plan. She created talking points for sales representatives. She established a media approval chain. She instructed the communications team to monitor false claims without arguing with critics online. She developed a schedule for individual calls with major clients. She required Marcus to attend the most important ones personally. She separated security updates from reputation updates, so neither team could delay the other. The work felt familiar but no longer personal. Vanessa was not trying to save the company she loved. She was solving an expensive problem for a client. That emotional distance made her sharper. She did not protect Marcus from embarrassment. She did not soften warnings to preserve his confidence. She made decisions based on what would reduce further damage. By the end of the first day, 2 clients agreed to delay cancellation while the forensic review continued. A third accepted a meeting with the security team. Rachel postponed publication of a follow-up article after receiving clear answers to several technical questions. The crisis was not over, but it had stopped accelerating. On the second day, Vanessa met with the security director to review how confidential materials had been accessed. A spreadsheet listed every employee, contractor, and consultant granted elevated permissions during the previous 2 months. One name immediately caught her attention. Mark Rossi. Vanessa kept her expression neutral. What was his role? The security director looked at the file. External growth consultant. When did he begin? The same week Isabella joined. When did he leave? 3 days before the breach became public. What access did he receive? Customer segmentation data, financial projections, market strategy files, and portions of the investor data room. Vanessa looked up sharply. Why would a growth consultant need access to the investor data room? Marcus approved it. Across the conference room, Marcus was on a call. Vanessa returned to the spreadsheet. Did Mark download anything? The security director opened a second file. He downloaded multiple folders 2 days before his contract ended. How much? Nearly the entire growth directory. Customer analysis, pricing documents, competitor assessments, and investor materials. Was that unusual? Yes. But his account was authorized, so the automated system did not block it. Where did the data go? We do not know yet. He used an encrypted external connection. Vanessa felt the pattern close around the company. The attack had not begun with Isabella's videos. The videos may have created the visible security opening, but Mark had already extracted something more valuable. He had entered legitimately. He had received permission. He had copied the company's strategic information and disappeared. Vanessa closed the laptop. "I need to speak with Marcus privately." They moved into a small meeting room. Marcus looked impatient. "We have a client call in 15 minutes. This is more important." Vanessa placed a printed copy of Mark's access history on the table. "Tell me how Mark Rossi was hired." David referred him. What did David say? That Mark had helped several companies improve growth operations. Did you verify those companies? He provided references. Did anyone conduct a full background review? Our normal vendor process was delayed because we needed him quickly. Who requested the urgency? Isabella. Of course. Marcus looked defensive. She said Mark helped shape the strategy that impressed us during her interview. That was language David gave her. Marcus frowned. What are you talking about? Vanessa opened a secure folder on her laptop. She had debated whether to disclose the emails. Amanda had advised her that CloudSync could be warned about immediate danger without publicly distributing private marital evidence. Vanessa needed to reveal only what directly affected the company. She turned the screen toward Marcus. The first email showed Mark offering to reduce David's debt in exchange for an executive-level introduction. The next described Isabella as the internal advocate. A third contained Mark's request for access to customer data pricing and investor information. The final message read, "Vanessa will not be there, that is the point." Marcus read the messages slowly. Color drained from his face. What is this? Evidence that Mark used David's gambling debt to gain access to CloudSync. Marcus looked at her. Gambling debt. David owed him approximately $85,000. Mark offered to reduce the balance if David brought him into the company. And Isabella. She appears to have known David was helping her secure the job. I have found no proof she understood Mark's full objective. Marcus read the messages again. You knew about this. I discovered it after you fired me. Why did you not tell us immediately? Vanessa stared at him. You removed me without warning. You replaced me publicly with my husband's girlfriend. You demanded that I train her after humiliating me in front of 200 employees. Why would you expect me to prioritize your protection before my own? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. I thought this was a bad hiring decision, he said eventually. It was worse. David planned all of this. He helped create the conditions. Mark exploited his debt. David used Isabella to secure internal access. You made the final decisions. The last sentence landed hardest. Marcus wanted David, Mark, and Isabella to carry all responsibility. Vanessa would not permit him to erase his role. You accepted every suggestion because it supported what you already wanted to believe, she continued. You wanted younger leadership before the funding round. You wanted social attention. You wanted investors to see CloudSync as culturally relevant. David gave you a story that made removing me feel innovative. Marcus lowered himself into a chair. I made a catastrophic mistake. Yes. I believed we needed a different kind of leadership. You believed experience made the company look old. I was wrong. Yes. He covered his face with both hands. What do we do about Mark? You hire a forensic security firm immediately. Not your existing internal team. An independent firm. Marcus nodded. You notify legal counsel that this may involve deliberate corporate espionage. You preserve every access log, email authorization, record security video, and contract. Should we call the police? Your lawyers will determine the appropriate authorities. What about clients? You do not accuse Mark publicly until the evidence is verified. But you prepare for the possibility that proprietary information has reached competitors. And investors, you tell them an expanded investigation is underway. Do not hide the possibility of intentional extraction if legal counsel confirms it. Marcus looked at the emails again. Will you stay and manage this? No. His head lifted. Vanessa, this is larger than the original crisis. My contract covers communications stabilization. You understand the history, the people, and the data. So does your security team. Not the way you do. The desperation in his voice would once have made Vanessa feel indispensable. Now it confirmed why leaving had been necessary. CloudSync had depended on her so completely that Marcus assumed she would always accept responsibility for whatever he failed to protect. I will complete the remaining contracted hours, she said. I will help communicate verified findings. I will not lead a corporate espionage investigation. What would it take? It is not about money. Marcus stared at her. I have other clients. I have a business. I have a daughter who needs me. I am not rebuilding my life around another CloudSync emergency. I understand. No, you understand the consequence. That is different. He looked older than ever. I am sorry. Vanessa remained silent. I am sorry for the way I removed you, he continued. I am sorry I believed presentation mattered more than judgment. I am sorry I let outside pressure convince me that the person who built our brand had become an obstacle. His apology sounded sincere. It also arrived after the consequences became expensive. Vanessa did not reject it, but she did not use it to repair something that no longer existed. You should apologize to the employees whose jobs you endangered. I will. And you should never describe this as a failure of young people. Marcus looked confused. Why would I? Because age was never the real problem. Isabella was not unqualified because she was young. She was unqualified because she lacked the necessary experience, judgment, and discipline. If you turn this into another stereotype, you will learn nothing. Marcus nodded slowly. You are right. Vanessa stood. The client call begins in 10 minutes. By the end of the second week, CloudSync had regained partial control of the public narrative. The company announced an independent security investigation. It created a compensation program for affected clients and offered additional security services at no cost. Marcus publicly accepted responsibility for leadership and oversight failures. 2 major customers remained. One that had canceled agreed to reconsider after the investigation. Investors did not resume the funding round, but they stopped discussing immediate withdrawal. CloudSync would survive, though, smaller, weaker, and permanently changed. Vanessa completed 23 hours of work. The additional 3 hours were billed separately. When Marcus asked whether she would extend the engagement, she declined. On her final afternoon, she closed her laptop in Conference Room B and sent the completed transition documents to Tyler legal counsel and the security team. Hannah met her in the hallway. Are you leaving again? Yes. This time feels different. It is. Hannah looked toward Vanessa's former office. The room was empty now. Isabella's belongings had been removed. Vanessa's old nameplate had disappeared. I should have warned you, Hannah said. You were afraid. That does not excuse it. No. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I thought staying silent would protect my job. Did it? For now. Vanessa touched her arm. Then learn from that. Silence can protect a position while destroying the person holding it. Hannah nodded. Will you ever come back? As a consultant, perhaps. At the right rate. Hannah laughed through her tears. Vanessa walked down the hallway one final time. She passed the media wall filled with articles she had helped create. She passed the conference room where the first enterprise contract had been won. She passed the break room where she had designed the original logo after midnight. The memories no longer felt stolen. They belonged to her whether or not the company acknowledged them. At the lobby doors, Marcus called her name. She turned. He stood several feet away, uncertain whether to approach. Thank you, he said. You paid the invoice. I mean for helping the company. I helped the employees. He accepted the distinction. Goodbye, Vanessa. Goodbye, Marcus. She stepped outside. The air felt lighter than it had on the day of her dismissal. The first time Vanessa left CloudSync, she carried a box of personal belongings and believed her future had been taken from her. The second time, she carried only her laptop. Her future was already waiting elsewhere. That evening, someone knocked on the door of her temporary apartment. Vanessa had moved there with Mia several days earlier after Amanda advised creating physical distance from David during the divorce proceedings. The apartment was smaller than their house, but it was quiet, secure, and free from memories designed to deceive her. She looked through the peephole. David stood in the hallway. He looked exhausted. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair had gone untrimmed, and the confidence he once carried so easily had disappeared. Vanessa opened the door but did not invite him farther than the entrance. What do you want? To talk. You can speak from there. David looked past her into the apartment. Is Mia home? She is studying with a friend. I have been trying to reach her. She will respond when she is ready. He nodded, though resentment flickered across his face. I lost my job. Vanessa said nothing. My company found out I shared client information with Marcus to influence Isabella's hiring. They said it was an ethical violation. That sounds accurate. I did not share anything confidential. You used professional relationships to advance your affair. David flinched. Isabella left. Again, Vanessa remained silent. She was fired from CloudSync and blamed me for everything. She said I promised the job would secure our future. Then she blocked my number and moved back east. What did you expect me to say? I do not know. That you deserved better. His face tightened. No. Then why are you here? Mark is threatening me. He says the debt still exists. He says the arrangement failed because CloudSync discovered the data transfer. Vanessa studied him. Did you believe helping him enter the company would erase what you owed? He promised to reduce it. You traded access to my company for debt relief. I did not know he intended to steal anything. You knew he demanded executive access. I thought he wanted a consulting contract. You did not care what he wanted. You cared that he could reduce your debt. David lowered his voice. I was desperate. You were calculating. I made terrible decisions. You made the same decision repeatedly for more than a year. He looked toward the floor. I know there is no excuse. Then do not offer one. I am asking for help. Vanessa almost laughed. From me. I do not have anyone else. You had a wife, a daughter, a home, and a stable career. You used all of them. I know. You manipulated Mia into protecting your affair. You drained our home equity. You paid Isabella's rent with family money. You helped remove me from my job because you believed unemployment would weaken me during a divorce. David's eyes filled with tears. I was not thinking clearly. You thought clearly enough to hide every transaction. I was addicted. I was scared. And now you are sorry because the plan failed. That is not true. If Isabella still had the job, Mark had cleared your debt, and I had collapsed the way you expected, would you be standing here asking for forgiveness? David did not answer. Vanessa nodded. That is the difference between regret and accountability. You regret losing control. You have not yet accepted what you chose to do. I love you. No? He looked up. You may love what I provided. Stability, income, respectability. Someone who solved problems. But love does not secretly dismantle another person's life. Can we ever fix this? No. The certainty of the answer seemed to break something in him. What am I supposed to do? Vanessa felt no pleasure in his collapse. She had once imagined that watching David lose everything would feel like justice. Instead, it felt empty. His suffering could not return the money, restore Mia's trust, or erase the public humiliation. You hire your own lawyer, she said. You cooperate with the financial investigation. You tell the truth about the debts. You stop contacting Mia until she chooses to speak with you, and you accept that I am no longer responsible for rescuing you. He wiped his face. You always know what to do. That is why you should not have made me your enemy. I never thought of you as an enemy. You treated me like an obstacle. David stood in silence. Vanessa opened the door wider, signaling that the conversation was over. He stepped into the hallway. Before leaving, he looked back. I am sorry. I hope one day you understand what you are apologizing for. She closed the door. Mia returned an hour later carrying a backpack and a bag of takeout food. Was Dad here? Yes. What did he want? Help. Did you give it to him? I told him what he needs to do. That is not the same as saving him. Mia set the food on the counter. Is he sorry? He is afraid. That is not what I asked. No, it is not. Mia nodded as though the answer confirmed something she had already understood. The divorce took almost a year to complete. The forensic accountant traced most of David's spending. The court classified several payments to Isabella as misuse of marital assets. David became responsible for a larger share of the home equity debt and gambling obligations. The house was eventually sold, and Vanessa recovered enough of the remaining equity to protect Mia's college fund. David cooperated only after his lawyers explained how damaging the records were. He pleaded ignorance regarding Mark's corporate activities. Whether investigators believed him remained unclear. Mark disappeared from his known business addresses and became part of a wider legal investigation involving several former clients. CloudSync filed claims against him and reviewed every piece of data he had accessed. The company survived, but the consequences were permanent. The Series C round never happened. Several senior leaders left. Marcus remained CEO under stricter board oversight. CloudSync reduced its workforce and returned to slower, more cautious growth. The media stopped discussing the scandal after several months. Another company made another mistake, and public attention moved on. Vanessa did not follow every development. She no longer checked CloudSync's news each morning or searched Isabella's name. She stopped measuring her progress against their decline. Her consulting business grew steadily. The healthcare software company extended her contract after completing a successful funding round. The cybersecurity firm referred her to 2 other clients. The education technology company promoted the marketing director Vanessa had mentored and retained her for quarterly strategy sessions. Within 18 months, Vanessa was earning more than she had at CloudSync while working fewer hours. She became an active member of the collective, referring projects to other experienced women and advising new members on pricing boundaries and contract structure. She also began speaking privately to founders about the dangers of confusing visibility with leadership. She never used Isabella's name. She did not need to. The lesson stood on its own. Mia entered college the following autumn. Before leaving, she and Vanessa moved into a bright townhouse with large windows, a small garden, and enough room for Mia to return during holidays. They chose the furniture together. Nothing in the new home had been selected by David or purchased during the years of hidden debt. The space felt honest. On the first evening after unpacking, Vanessa sat on the back steps while Mia planted herbs in wooden boxes near the fence. "You know what is strange," Mia said. "What?" "I thought losing the house would feel like losing our family." Vanessa looked through the open door at the new kitchen. "And does it?" "No. The old house stopped feeling like ours before we left." Vanessa understood. A home was not preserved by walls. Neither was a career preserved by a title. In the months that followed, Vanessa began doing things she had postponed for years. She joined a weekend hiking group. She took a pottery class and produced several uneven bowls that Mia displayed proudly despite Vanessa's objections. She traveled without checking email every hour. She learned to leave her phone in another room during dinner. She still worked hard. Independence did not mean avoiding responsibility. It meant choosing where her responsibility belonged. Some clients frustrated her. Some projects failed. Some months were less profitable than others. But no single executive could summon 200 employees into a conference room and erase her livelihood with 4 words. That security came from diversification boundaries and confidence in her own ability to create value. One morning, Vanessa received an invitation to speak at a marketing leadership conference. The event description introduced her as Vanessa Hayes, fractional CMO and growth strategist, known for helping technology companies navigate high-stakes transitions and build trusted brands. CloudSync appeared only in the biography as a previous role. She read the introduction without feeling anger. For years, she believed CloudSync was the most important thing she had built. She now understood that the most important thing was the person capable of building it. The company had been one expression of her ability, not the source of it. Marcus had taken her title. David had tried to take her financial security. Isabella had stepped into her office. Mark had benefited from her removal. None of them could take the discipline, judgment, relationships, resilience, and knowledge Vanessa had developed across decades. Those qualities traveled with her. They became more valuable once she stopped giving them to people who treated them as permanent resources they could use without gratitude. On the anniversary of the meeting that ended her career at CloudSync, Vanessa finished a client presentation early and walked outside. The weather was clear. Mia had called that morning from college to describe a class she loved. 3 new project inquiries waited in Vanessa's inbox, but none required an immediate response. She made coffee and sat in the garden. For a moment, she remembered the conference room. Marcus's voice. Isabella's smile. The silence of 200 employees. The sensation of being erased while still sitting in the room. The memory no longer had the power to define the day. Vanessa once believed losing her position meant losing everything. In reality, she had lost a company that stopped respecting her, a marriage built on deception, and a life that required her to sacrifice herself in order to keep it functioning. What remained was more important: her daughter, her reputation, her independence, her ability to begin again. The skills she had built over 8 years never belonged to CloudSync. The strength she discovered after leaving never belonged to David. Her value had always been her own. The people who betrayed her had not taken her life away. They had only forced her to stop building it for them.